Time to unveil the penultimate BCS standings in the top 10, brought to you by Allstate on our BCS board. And sitting at number 10, probably the most disappointed team after Thanksgiving weekend in terms of potential at-large teams. LSU fell on the road to Arkansas and likely cost itself an at-large berth in the Sugar Bowl or a BCS game. At number 9, Oklahoma, by finishing there, the Sooners earned the right to play in the Big 12 championship game representing the South. The Sooners finished in a three-way tie with Oklahoma State and Texas A&M. They'll face Nebraska for the Big 12 title. Michigan State, school record for wins, share of the Big 10 title for the first time since 1990, but it likely will not put them in a BCS game as the Spartans are ranked 8th in the latest BCS standings. Biggest winner over the Thanksgiving weekend in terms of at-large berths, Arkansas. They appear to be ticketed for the Sugar Bowl should Auburn win the SEC championship and play for the national title. At number 6, Ohio State, the lone loss on the road against Wisconsin. That will probably cost the Buckeyes a trip to the Rose Bowl because Wisconsin checks in at number 5.
Did you see that? How about this? Kobe Hamilton. He gets the nice block between two LSU defenders for this touchdown right before the half.
Yeah, LSU does what they're supposed to do. Keep the ball in front of you, but then tackle the offensive guy. Yeah, hit the right guy. Hit the guy in the other color jersey.
Friendly fire, taking out Morris Claiborne. However, he did get up, walk off the field.
No, I'm sitting here and I take a look at the Sugar Bowl, and I'm going to go with Arkansas with the big win over LSU to propel them versus Ohio State. An at-large bid right there for Ohio State, and they get it over Michigan State purely because they're going to travel better.
Buckeyes, they have the fan support. They travel well. Arkansas would be in for the first time since '79.
Meantime, Arkansas beats LSU to take home that golden boot for a third time in 4 years. Now, after the game, Dave, the PA system was blaring a Def Leppard song, Pour Some Sugar on Me. Do you know that one?
Absolutely, I know that song.
I figured you did. So what this indicates is that Arkansas really wants Auburn to win this weekend in the SEC championship because they think they're the de facto team to end up in the Sugar Bowl. Yep. Does this Razorbacks team deserve its first ever BCS full berth?
Yeah, I think they do. I absolutely think they do. If you look at the matchup, they beat LSU. They both have 2 losses. They've got some common opponents. I mean, everything matches up the right way, and I absolutely think Arkansas should go. If you want to talk about, listen, I know Auburn's undefeated. I know there's a lot of teams you could argue. Arkansas, you can't argue, is not the hottest team in the SEC. I mean, they've been putting up points in bunches, running the football. Defense has been surprisingly stingy. If you look at their defense and the speed they put on the field, I was watching them chase Jordan Jefferson around this week. They've got some speed. They're first in the SEC in tackles for losses. They make negative plays. Arkansas is definitely one of the hottest teams in the SEC, if not the hottest team.
Only 2 losses on the year for Arkansas. And
pretty good
to
teams
Alabama
too, huh?
very early, and to
number
Auburn
1 and number 2.
in a shootout that Ryan for the whole second half. He's only the 4th quarterback now in SEC history to pass for 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. Defensive Player of the Week honors go to Arkansas linebacker Jericho Nelson. Led the Razorbacks with 11 total tackles, including 2 for a loss. The Hogs limited the Tigers to just 71 yards of total offense in the second half. Meantime, LSU did not finish the season the way that it wanted to, and that defensive unit, which has been so strong all year, faltered down the stretch in the past 4 games, giving up 7 scoring plays, 39 yards or longer. They're giving up more yardage overall. What happened in this uncharacteristic change for the Tigers defense?
Well, I think that you would have expected it this week. I mean, if you look at Ryan Mallon, what he's able to do, it makes good defenses look bad. I mean, you see the pass to Kobe Hamilton on the sidelines that goes 85 yards. There's not a quarterback in college football besides Ryan Mallett that can make that play. You usually don't have to defend the outsides of the field. You usually have to defend 45 yards. He makes you defend all of it, and it was huge plays. You know, the Niall Davis 15-yard touchdown run, 85 yards, 80 yards. How about the play before the half? That can't happen. You're talking about taking a timeout, putting seconds back on the clock. It goes from 3 seconds to 6, and Bobby Petrino goes, hey, what the heck, 6 seconds, we'll chuck it. We're 80 yards away, and you give up an 80-yard touchdown? That can never happen. That is poor defense from a team that we're used to seeing great defense from.
You can't show Bobby Petrino the throat because he's going to go after it, and I thought that was great. And after the game, he said, look, we're playing to win this game. 10 wins was the goal for that team.
He found Les Miles' horseshoe before the game or something. He stole the hat.
Maybe he was eating the grass in Little Rock. You never know.
He could have been doing that.
It's time now to unveil the final top 10 in the BCS, and checking in at number 10, LSU, the Mad Hatter fell late against Arkansas. It will keep the Tigers out of a BCS game. Just ahead, Michigan State, the lowest ranked in the BCS of the 3 champions in the Big Ten this year. Just ahead is Arkansas. Arkansas is going to get an at-large bid to the Sugar Bowl. In New Orleans, in the All-State Sugar Bowl, Ryan Mallett and the Hogs roll in to replace Auburn as they go to the national championship game. And the Legends going to be pitching it around against Terrell Pryor and Ohio State. This is a tremendous matchup in New Orleans.
Well, I think, you know what, the matchup, I'm looking forward to Ohio State's defense, because this is a defense statistically that just dominates. You know, you can talk about all the things you want, but they get to the football. They lead the country pretty much in 3 and outs, like 6 per game. So Ohio State's defense, they're going to try to keep it away from the Legend. They're going to go out there and they're going to say, hey, we're going to put you over on the sideline, let you get a drink of water and stay there. Don't come out and throw, because he can definitely throw the football.
That's a great matchup, the defense, but keep in mind we've got the old school and the new school quarterbacks. You think about the dual threat quarterback and Terrell Pryor and what he brings to the floor of that ball game against the old school drop back Ryan Mallett, pitch it around, as good an arm as there is in college football. That's a great matchup.
Yeah, don't underestimate the Big Ten and SEC in a big-time Sugar Bowl. Ohio State obviously has struggled against the SEC, so they'll be essentially on the road, and they'll have to deal with a hostile environment down there in New Orleans.
How about the way Arkansas ended hot? As hot as anybody out there. South Carolina, Mississippi State, LSU, 3 big wins. I mean, this is a football team I don't think anybody want to mess with.
And they're very balanced now. Niall Davis now running the football for them.
Changed them.
Yeah, when Childs went down, Davis stepped up, and that's something that's really helped him out.
Hey, Lou, you took Arkansas to a Sugar Bowl in the past, too. What do you think this is going to mean for to the Arkansas fans and to the entire program that Bob Petrino's putting together to get in this game?
It's going to mean a lot more than New Orleans, because I want to tell you, those Hog fans will get down there, they will dominate that city. And they love their Hogs. They love it, and Bobby Petrino's done a tremendous job. That's a great football team. But Ohio State has something to prove as well. They played very well in the Rose Bowl last year. Remember, Oregon went in there thinking, oh, we are on a great roll. Ohio State shut them off.
I think for Jim Tressel, it's very big for him. I think for him and the Ohio State program to go to 2 consecutive BCS games and try to win 2 consecutive ones in a row, that's a statement across the country that the Big Ten is definitely back with the big boys.
And to try to beat an SEC team in a bowl game is something that Ohio State has been unable to do.
2 best conferences.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of thinking about this Boise State football team, and we just heard Gary Patterson talk about the importance of going to the Big East and what that means for his team. I got a recommendation for you right out there now. If you're the Big 12 and you want to preserve yourself, you go find a way to get Boise State into your conference. That right there helps keep your future intact. Then you go over and you find someone else, and I'd go after Arkansas, because right now Boise State is a fine football team, and they're going to be in the same predicament next year because they're more than likely going to run the table, be undefeated, and have a chance of being left out. So the Big 12 wins and Boise State wins.
But does Arkansas win? Because they're giving up some cash if they leave the SEC.
Okay, here they are. Okay, let me answer for a second here. Okay, here's Arkansas.
I'm not going to let us get too far off track.
Okay,
I promise.
okay,
Go ahead.
Here's the deal. Okay. If I'm selling Arkansas on this thing, you get back to your roots. You were there, Coach, when they were in the Southwest Conference. They get back to Texas, recruiting in Texas. And the team that they have this year, there's a good chance that they could be undefeated in the Big 12 playing for a national championship. If you want to play for national championships, come on back over to the Big 12.
Well, I think they probably fit in better geographically. As you mentioned, Texas is a big recruiting area, etc.
The All-State Sugar Bowl, Ryan Mallett, that big arm. 3rd in the nation in passing are the Hogs of Bob Petrino, and they take on Ohio State. This is a compelling matchup. I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to this game, I think, as much as any you'll see in the postseason, because I personally think if we had a playoff, you wouldn't want any part of the Hogs right now.
South Carolina, Mississippi State, LSU, down the backstretch, they won those games. I mean, this is a hot football team. Ryan Mallett, 30 touchdowns, only 11 interceptions. They've got a ground game with Niall Davis at almost 100 per game, and it's 6.6 a clip. So this is a solid football team.
And that arm is legendary, that big arm that he has. But he's going to be challenged by that Buckeye defense. It's going to be interesting to see an SEC offense and their speed and that Big Ten defense, if they can get it going. It's going to be a great clash to find out, because those Buckeyes on defense, they've been spectacular from the beginning of the season right on through the end. They've been extremely consistent.
Yeah, I kept saying it all year. You kept saying Wisconsin, but here,
Wisconsin,
I love Ohio State. I tell you, this is another SEC Big Ten matchup. But I think Ohio State could play for the national championship. I think they're that good. Now, granted, Indiana to Oregon, and Oregon and Auburn deserve there. But what I'm saying, I think Ohio State's a great football team, and they're capable of beating anybody on a given day.
Well, if they could play for the national championship, so could Stanford, so could TCU.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's
what I'm saying. I've never seen a bowl season line up where we have as many good matchups between teams that really might be as good as any in the country.
It's very balanced year. Obviously, clear-cut who's playing for the national championship. But Jesse, this is a very compelling and intriguing matchup.
It is, and I agree, Reese, with what you said earlier. Nobody wants to play them right now. They've won 6 in a row since losing to Auburn. You guys talked about Ryan Mallett. He can make throws that 95% of the quarterbacks in the National Football League cannot make. And Craig, you mentioned Niall Davis. He has 13 touchdowns now in his last 6 games. You look at Arkansas's defense, they're very athletic. They can get after the quarterback. They held LSU to only 100 rushing yards just a few weeks back, and LSU likes to line up with a tight end, a fullback on the field, try to pound the football at you a little bit. Well, Ohio State's going to try to do the same thing with Boom Herron, Brandon Sain. Of course, whenever you talk Ohio State, the key is containing Terrell Pryor and not allowing him to move the chains on 3rd down. Since the start of last season, no player has had more runs of 15 yards or more on 3rd down than Terrell Pryor. After Cam Newton, he's the best quarterback in the country, moving the sticks with his legs. Does Arkansas have the athleticism to contain Terrell Pryor? Remember, Ohio State, a team historically that's had issues with SEC competition in these big bowl games against Florida and LSU in national championship games.
Yeah, in fact, Jesse, they're 0-8 in bowl games all time in the SEC. You, in fact, from South Carolina, beat them a couple times. But are they the... What? How many? That's what I said, a couple times.
Okay.
A couple's 2. Everybody's getting testy. Like, I think Jesse brings up a good point. Some of the teams that Ohio State has lost to in bowl games, big-time, nasty defenses at LSU and Florida. Arkansas is very good offensively, and it won't change the fact if they win the game to get a victory over an SEC team. But does Arkansas fit the same profile as those SEC teams that have beaten Ohio State in the past?
I think with speed and athleticism, I mean, Arkansas, they can still, just because they throw the ball doesn't mean that they're not physical. They're a really physical football team, running the ball, putting pressure on you, and they play defense as well. I think the difference in this game, and I know, Jesse, you've watched and observed as well, Terrell Pryor, how he now has become much more than just a scrambling quarterback. What he does now, Jesse, with those legs and opening it up, unbelievable. I like how he takes off like he's going to run. He'll pull up and throw the ball. And just when you think he's going to pull up and throw it, then he takes off and he runs. So I really think Pryor can be the difference in this ball game.
There are 2.
Craig, I think we've watched the maturation of a pocket passing quarterback through his first 3 seasons playing in college. You're absolutely right. He does such a good job now getting through progressions, reading coverages, working the field, running when he has to, not when he wants to. I think that's been the biggest difference for Ohio State on offense this year.
There are 2 states that have more athletes per capita than you would believe, and one of them is South Carolina, the other one's Arkansas. Trust me, Arkansas will always have people that can run and are very athletic, and they'll be as athletic as any team in the country. They may not be as good fundamentally, may not be as big, but they will be athletic.
And Terrell Pryor on the big stage, he always performs extremely well, but I like it better when he runs the ball. I know he's developed just as a pocket passer, but he's more efficient and more effective when he's running the football.
All-State Sugar Bowl. Arkansas up against the Ohio State Buckeyes. For the Ohio State Buckeyes, they're in the BCS for the 6th straight year. Compare that to Arkansas in the big-time bowl games for the first time in program history. Now for the Buckeyes, there's more history here because for the 9th time overall, they are in a BCS bowl. That's a record. No one has been there as much. There's the tail of the tape. Both Ohio State and Arkansas getting in, virtue of those at-larges out there. Both these teams, they want to be here. For Ohio State, maybe there was an outside chance they could play for the national championship. But in years past, you had Bama, Florida scorned from that SEC championship game. Arkansas feeling very, very good to be in this position. So you go in, you start to look at these matchups here, and Jim Tressel says he knows Ryan Mallett from his days at Michigan. He's not lying when he said he was happy when he went to Arkansas. Arkansas. What's he going to see, though, in this bowl game, Coach?
He may not be happy in the bowl game. I'll tell you that much. Ryan Mallett probably has the livest or the strongest quick release. I mean, he's unbelievable. The ball finishes for him. But they're two different quarterbacks here. He doesn't want to get outside the pocket. You want Terrell Pryor, in my opinion, to get outside the pocket. But they've both thrown 11 interceptions here. They've made some mistakes. But again, Pryor's feet can make a difference in this game. And again, I think Ohio State's defense is going to be better than most that they have seen over the course of the year. Bobby Petrino, though, is an unbelievable coach that has put Ryan Mallett in a great position to have success.
Yeah, and I think the number one reason why you're going to look at Terrell Pryor is going to be because of Boom Herron. He's really been coming up. I don't want to ask Terrell Pryor to go out and win a game. I can trust Ryan Mallett to do that. I have no doubt about that. If he needs to throw it 40 times, that can happen. I want Terrell Pryor's touches to be limited. Boom Herron, last 11 games, he's got at least one touchdown. He's really been that physical hammer, over 100 yards 3 of the last 4 games. I want to start implementing the run, play a little ball control, keep it away from Ryan Mallett, limit Pryor's touches, because Mallett can throw all he wants to, but if I'm Coach Tressel, I'm like, listen, I want Pryor to throw the ball about 22 times.
Well, Herron finally passed Pryor as the leading rusher on the team.
Yeah,
a couple of games ago. No, really.
Well, keep in mind, Arkansas has already seen a 6'6", 250-pound number 2. They don't need to see another one. This is about image enhancement, guys. This is an opportunity for the Ohio State Buckeyes to prove they can get it done on the field versus an SEC opponent with a conference in the Big Ten that feels slighted and disrespected by the SEC, by SEC fans. Ohio State got beat twice in 2 national championship games, once to LSU, once to Florida, and embarrassed in the Florida game. So this is an opportunity to go down into SEC country, where Ohio State and Jim Tressel does spend a lot of time recruiting, make a statement in a bowl game, something they've struggled to do in the past. And what's interesting here is everybody talks about the Ohio State defense. Arkansas leads the SEC in tackles for loss and sacks. And they're going to have their hands full with a scrambling around Terrell Pryor, who I think really got over a hurdle in a big win on the road versus Iowa late in the 4th quarter. They may need to do them again if this thing turns into a scoring race.
Tommy, I know you don't like the stats, but digging around, did you know Arkansas is actually 0 for 3 against the Big Ten in bowl games as well?
Well,
so
is
this whole thing overblown?
It doesn't matter if it's overblown. The problem that the image with the Big Ten has right now is that they can't compete and contend with SEC teams. That's why this is such a pivotal game, not just for Ohio State, for the entire conference. They've been battling that stigma going back 5 to 7 years now.
Well, I don't know how Arkansas is going to perform, but I can tell you what, this Ryan Mallett, he is the real deal. And I know he's going to perform. He's going to come to play because he has a lot on the line against a very good Ohio State defense. But I love watching this guy play. And when you look at that offense that they have, a back over 1,000 yards, 5 receivers, over 500 yards. I've never heard of such thing. And, he's thrown for over 3,000 yards. I think it's amazing the numbers that they put up. And this guy is a prototypical quarterback. I mean, we talk about all these running quarterbacks and all these guys who are highfalutin quarterbacks. But this guy here is the real deal when you're talking about dropping back and throwing the football.
And think about the Big Ten, too. I mean, you think about the pass. And then listen, Ohio State's got one of the best pass defenses in the country. They give up 156 yards a game. Mallett could get that in a quarter. I mean, he has gotten that in a quarter before. You're talking about the best passing attack, Denard Robinson, Ricky Stanzi, and Ja'Cory Harris, as far as who they've played so far in Ohio State. Cameron Hayward better bring the pressure, better get in his face, because you have to defend the whole field with Mallett. I mean, he's got that hose. And Nile Davis, he's got 1,000 in the last 8 weeks. I mean, 7 weeks. He wasn't even the number one guy, but they're going to have to do a good job disguising. And they've struggled in the big-time moments against the SEC, against big-time athletes on the outside. So that should be, that's a full-grown man, though. Look at that. Just running folks over.
Well, we just talked about the pressure Bob Stoops is under. How about Jim Tressel with the job he's got to do? I mean, their record against the SEC is pretty abysmal. And Arkansas is one of those teams where I know their record isn't the best against the Big Ten, but they've got a solid team. I mean, they've beaten 4 top 25 teams. Their offense can throw it all over the field. I really like Arkansas in this matchup.
The Big Ten that has been so disrespected on behalf of fans and particularly people in the Southeast and the SEC. You've got Michigan going up against Mississippi State. We've got Arkansas, obviously, versus Ohio State. Alabama's going up against Michigan State. And so there are opportunities. And in this Sugar Bowl, sometimes with guys who haven't been there before to the big dance, and this is a big dance for Arkansas, they may press early, have some guys get caught up in the spectacle of it all. Ohio State has been there before.
A lot.
I think that they are carrying the torch for a conference. And keep in mind, it was Ohio State's presidents who made the comments last week about murderers of the road and little sisters of the poor, but he doesn't have a lot to back it up in recent history in BCS bowl games versus the Southeastern Conference. So tremendous opportunity for a torch to be carried in a positive direction for Ohio State, not just for the Buckeyes, but for the entire conference.
You know, when I look at Arkansas, the best thing for them is Nile Davis really going well. And it wasn't just for offense, it was for their defense. Their defense was not good early in the year, and when they were able to start having big plays by him, it just helped them. It just helped this team, and it helped Ryan Mallett, because we talked about him feeling pressure to perform every single time, had some receivers go down. This guy was outstanding.
You got to have balance to take the pressure off the quarterback, and if you have a solid running game, which they got with Nile Davis, you get that done. The real interesting thing to me about this game is Terrell Pryor. I saw him last year in the Rose Bowl, sort of a coming out for him. Yes. This is another bowl game now where he's got something to prove to a degree. Sure. He was one of the preseason Heisman guys. He sort of fell off. He's come back a little bit now, but again, against Oregon last year, he was lights out. I mean, he was the best player on the field, had his best game, and I'm not certain it's going to happen against Arkansas, but I'll tell you what, he needs to, because Ryan Mallett has an unbelievable arm and will throw the ball all over the field.
This is the last number 2 he played against.
Yeah, Cam Newton.
Cam Newton then put up 62 or 63 points in that ball game against
Ohio State
Arkansas.
doesn't use him the way Auburn uses Cam Newton.
And you know what? They're starting to do a little bit more of it. It makes sense. And how about if you have a month to prepare and you got all this time?
You've got a month. Film now. You're looking
at
every single game, and you're looking at what do we look like against the teams that they played. In other words, which offense do we most resemble? What did they do most? What defenses? So coaches are looking at all that film.
And I don't have to worry about my guy getting hurt because it's the last game of the season. Yeah. So I think we could see the Terrell Pryor type that we should see. We should see this guy running the football a little bit more. You saw against Penn State running a little bit more zone read, and I think that's what they should come out and do. If they want to really be successful and they look at that Cam Newton tape and what they were able to do, they're going to have some fun with that because Cam Newton and them just destroyed them.
Well, you know, I got a chance to see this team, Ohio State, 3 times this year up close, and I really didn't see any kind of improvement from Terrell Pryor, and I was looking for it, hoping for it. And he is another big guy. I mean, you walk up beside him and you think defensive lineman all day. I mean, he is a really big man, but I think that he is going to have to really, and you're right, Coach, what he did against Oregon last year in the Rose Bowl was incredible. And you thought coming in this year that he was going to throw the ball all over the place and really have a great season, but it really didn't turn out that way. As far as their defense, Cameron Haywood, when I saw him the first game, he was lights out versus Miami. When we saw him the next 2 times versus Indiana and versus Wisconsin, we rarely called his name in the game. I mean, he was just a guy on the field. Chikwa is a very good defensive back for Ohio State, but Cameron Haywood is going to have to come and play bigger versus Ryan Mallett in that offense versus Arkansas.
Well, the Petrino family has a little experience now against the Buckeyes. Paul Petrino, the OC for Illinois. Yeah. They played Ohio State very close during the regular season. Bobby says he's probably going to reach out at some point to Paul.
You think?
Does that become a factor at all, Coach? Does that actually help you with something like this?
It does. I had Illinois last week against Fresno State, and I talked to Paul Petrino, and he talks to his brother twice a week. They call on Mondays, and they go over sort of the game plan of what type of defense are they seeing, and they talk and compare notes. Then they do it again Friday just as a recap, more of a good luck thing. But Monday they actually spend, he said, about half an hour to an hour just talking about the teams they're going to play and throwing ideas back and forth. And, you know, Paul's says his brother's the best offensive coordinator in the world. And he might be, so.
Just no longer with him.
Yeah.
Spread the wings a little bit now with the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is the tell of 2 of the bigger quarterbacks you're going to see. Terrell Pryor's probably going to run a little bit more. Ryan Mallett, though, when he gets that full head of steam and he lowers his shoulder, we've seen that happen a couple of times, and I feel bad for defensive backs that try to tackle that big boy. The rushing yards per game, you see there, that's what Terrell Pryor having the edge with, but the passing touchdowns, 30 overall for Ryan Mallett. Going to have some fun down in Nolens. The coaching search is apparently underway to find the next great Gators head coach. And for more on that, we welcome in ESPN's Pat Forty. Pat, at this point, who do you think the Gators start targeting?
Well, it will be a great coach, I'm sure, because it's a great job. So little track top candidates. I wouldn't be surprised, given the relationship between Jeremy Foley and Bob Stoops and Stoops' ties to the Florida program as a coordinator under Spurrier. If he gets the right of first refusal again, he may turn it down again. He's kicked the tires on a few jobs, but haven't driven any off the lot since he got to Oklahoma. Past that, there's the obvious Urban Meyer ties to Dan Mullen and Charlie Strong, two coordinators who did great work and are off to very successful starts to their head coaching careers at Mississippi State and at Louisville. Might want to keep an eye also on Bobby Petrino. He was the number 2 choice in 2004 and has done a very good job, obviously, at Arkansas. I would say those 4 are the top right there. And then also you might want to just keep an eye on Kyle Whittingham at Utah. The president of Florida is Bernie Machin, who did come from Utah. And, hey, it worked one time hiring a youth coach. Might work a second time as well.
South Carolina's loss to Auburn in that SEC championship game in the long run ended up being Arkansas's gain. Now, had South Carolina beat Auburn, they would have gone to the Sugar Bowl. Instead, Auburn escalates to the national championship game. That opens up that at-large berth there in the Sugar Bowl, and it is the Arkansas Razorbacks who are heading to their first ever BCS Bowl game, a 6-game win streak down the stretch paying big dividends. 10-2, the only 2 losses to Auburn and Alabama. These Razorbacks, how were they so overshadowed all season? Look where they're playing.
Well, it's because of the LSUs of this world, the Alabama's the number 1 team coming into the season, but a lot of people talked about Arkansas being their dark horse candidate out of the Western Division, rightfully so. They proved everyone right, especially down the stretch, the latter part of this season. The way they were running the football made them the most complete Arkansas Razorback team that we've seen under Bobby Petrino. Credit that coaching staff of realizing what they had in Nile Davis and in that ground game and what that could mean to their scoring potential. This is going to be a great ball game in the Sugar Bowl versus Ohio State, another really good defense versus one of the best offenses, a very balanced offense all of a sudden in the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Nile Davis started to make his impact after that Alabama game. Had they discovered what they had in the running back before, 11-1 may have been possible. You never know.
Other 2010 award winners during this college football season include Gus Malzahn of Auburn, this year's recipient of the Broyles Award for the nation's most outstanding assistant coach. The John Mackey Award for best tight end, DJ Williams, Arkansas. TCU's Jake Kirkpatrick, winner of the Remington Trophy for outstanding center in college football. The William V. Campbell Trophy, which signifies the nation's premier football scholar athlete, Sam Acho, Texas. The Bronco Nagurski Trophy for most outstanding defensive player goes to Clemson's Daquan Bowers. And Nick Fairley is this year's Rotary Lombardi Award winner, which is presented to the best defensive lineman. Here to present the Disney Spirit Award, the Director of Marketing for Disney Sports, Farron Kelly, and last year's Disney Spirit Award recipient from Boston College, Mark Herzlig.
The Disney Spirit Award is presented annually to college football's most inspirational figure. Nobody better exemplifies the award than last year's recipient, Boston College linebacker Mark Herzlig, who is here to help present the award. Mark?
Thank you. Winning the award last year was something very special. This award is a little different. It's not about the stats on the field or how you play the game, which we all know this winner can play the game too. But winning the award last year was truly amazing for me. I battled through cancer, came back on the field to play, and have played in all 12 games of this season, going for a bowl game now. But this year's winner is a guy who truly exemplifies the word inspiration. He's unbelievably courageous. I got to meet his family last night. They're unbelievably courageous as well. And he's really been able to do it on and off the field. As you just saw, he's the best tight end in the country, but he's also one of the best men in the country. Let's take a look.
Before they became the hands that shaped his future, DJ Williams used one finger to start the journey toward a new life.
I just put my finger on a map and it landed in Little Rock, and we got in the car and left, and that's where we started over.
It was not a beginning born of choice. Williams and his 2 sisters grew up outside Dallas with childhoods marked by brutal fear. Their mother, Vicky, was frequently beaten by their father, David Williams, whose violent episodes were fueled by crack addiction.
He had taken a cast iron skillet and broke it over my head. And if I wouldn't have raised my hand up, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Her pinky is broken. She can't bend it out. And that reminds her every day of it, that that's the hand that saved her life. It made me feel like I was in a helpless position. There was nothing I can do.
The day after DJ's 11th birthday in 1999, the family reached the breaking point.
He hit me and bursted my eardrum. When he left the house, I looked at the children and I said, I don't think I can do this anymore.
I knew what was coming. I knew we were going to leave everything, leave my dad behind, and at the time did not sound like a bad day at all. The thing about it now that I'm older is I understood the courage that it took for my mom to make a decision like that.
If we go, we're leaving everything. I said, I'm leaving my job, we're leaving the house. I said, kids, we are just going to start out with the clothes you got on your bag.
2 days after arriving at a shelter in Dallas, the family found out David Williams was a fugitive after shooting another man 8 times. After a week at the shelter, officials told Vicky to leave the state for her own safety.
I was scared to go. I didn't know anybody. And DJ looked at me and said, Mom, don't worry.
My mom was ready to leave, and she pulled out a map and told me to put my finger on it, and that's where we're going to go. It was as simple as that. Big map, finger on it, boom, that's where we went.
As David Williams was eventually found guilty of attempted murder, the family started over in Arkansas with nothing, but found strength in one another.
We needed each other to lean on, and that's exactly what we did. It made us grow close, very close.
DJ knows in a heartbeat you can lose everything you have. And that's why he takes every day and just embraces it.
A dozen years after leaving Dallas, the country has now seen what DJ Williams can do with his hands.
DJ's at the 15, cuts back to the middle of the field, to the 10, to the 5, Williams to the pylon, touchdown Arkansas!
A senior at Arkansas, he's the NCAA's active leader in receptions and receiving yards by a tight end. As he prepares to graduate this month, perhaps the most important thing he carries is his message of hope, strength, and love.
I want to be a living example that just because you come from a broken background, that's not where it has to end. You can make whatever you want to out of yourself. Hopefully my story will inspire other people to put all the bad things that they have in their life aside and make their choice to become who they want to be.
Walt Disney is widely credited with saying, "All your dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them." This year's Disney Spirit Award recipient, DJ Williams, is a living testament to that belief. DJ.
DJ, congratulations.
Thank you.
We just saw your story. When things got the toughest and the darkest in your childhood, what was it that pulled you through, that gave you belief that things like this might be possible someday?
It was family. You know, we were in a situation where we truly were all we had, and that's what we had to depend on. And of course, we couldn't be where we were now if it wasn't for God. And He's a big part of our life, our family's life, and I'm just thankful He's put us in the position we are in now.
This award is about inspiration. Mark has inspired so many, and inspiration can mean helping people through fear. What do you say to kids feeling that fear that you felt for yourself and for your family as a young child?
For me, I was young, of course, not too really aware of what was going on, but I still had that sense of fear. But I also understood with my mom's guidance, I have a choice to what I want to be in life, and it's not determined by, my upbringing or who I'm around. It's my choice, and I made the best out of it, and so far it's worked out to my family. First, starting with my mother, I've dedicated this award to her. I wish we had 4 trophies because we should have one for me and my 2 sisters and my mom. It's just an amazing experience, and I'm glad to share it with them.
As Mark mentioned, you're also a hell of a football player. You'll be taking the field against Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl, along with the Razorback teammates. As a kid, there were Christmases with no presents. We're in the holiday season. Because of football, you're going to have a lot of Christmases, we hope, down the line with lots of big presents. What else besides that has this sport meant to your process? It's big time. It's helped me build character as a man. I'm really, not a great father figure in my life, and a lot of people that have been that figure have been my coaches. Starting with Tim Perry, he's my coach at CAC. He was my coach at CAC. He's a great band. Got me to play football. I was determined to be in the band, and he got me out of it. And thankfully he did. I can still. There's a YouTube clip playing the snare drum. It's pretty good. But and then after that, went to Arkansas, recruited by Houston Nutt. He's a phenomenal person, a great players coach. A lot of people can understand after playing with him what I'm talking about. And then Coach Petrino, he's really instilled a lot in me. He understood that with hard work you can achieve anything. He's a phenomenal coach and a phenomenal man. A lot of people outside really don't understand that, but just being a player, a part of his system, he's really built me as a man. He's built character in each one of our teammates. He's just a great coach, and I have Jeff Long here with me too. He's our athletic director, and I can go to him and talk to him about anything. I'm just blessed with all the people that I have around me. Well, congratulations on your upcoming graduation. Congratulations to the Disney Spirit Award, and also the Mackey Award, and thanks for being the example that you are. Folks, DJ Williams, we wish you the best, sir.
Without wasting any time, let's go to the All-State Sugar Bowl, January 4th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, ESPN. Ohio State up against Arkansas. For the Buckeyes, their 11th straight bowl appearance, 0-9 against SEC teams in bowl games. Arkansas's 2 losses, guys, came against teams that were #1 at the time. Bobby Petrino, in his 3rd season, getting it done. Give me a key to this game, Robert.
Well, I think it's going to be the defensive line for Ohio State. The numbers have not been fantastic. You can see Cameron Hayward there, Iron Hayward's son. The numbers weren't great, but I think what they do all season long, or what they did all season long, Jim Haycock, along with Lou Fickell, the co-defensive coordinators, do an excellent job of mixing up the looks from that defensive line. That's going to be key in this ball game, dropping these guys back into coverage at times to try and confuse Ryan Mallett, and compressing the pocket just enough. If they can't get there for sacks and tackles for loss, at least compress that pocket. Well, and that's been the knock on Ryan Mallett his whole career. If you just line up and play one defense, he will shred you. But I can't get out of my head, last year I did his bowl game against ECU. He had some terrible throws in that game against a very complex defense. Alabama earlier in the year, I still can't get those throws out of my head late in that ball game. So the question is, which Ryan Mallett shows up? And I think arguably this is as good a secondary as he saw against Alabama and LSU. So to me, this is which Ryan Mallett are you going to get? Is it the guy who was great at the end of the season, or who has had his bumps along the road?
The country going 55% with Ohio State. If the Buckeyes win, and if things fall into place, they have a chance to finish in the top 3 in the BCS final rankings. Who do you like?
I like Ohio State. I don't like them a ton. I've got them with 12 confidence points, but I think it comes down to what Robert and I were talking about. Niall Davis has been a great addition to that offense in the second half of the season for Arkansas, but I have seen Ryan Mallett enough make mistakes enough against really good defenses that I feel like he's going to make 2 or 3 in this ball game that could cost them.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm going with Ohio State in this one, and I can't help but think about last season and how Oregon looked after that Boise State game, rolling through the Pac-10, putting up huge numbers all year, and then all of a sudden they face a great defense. And quite honestly, the SEC defenses were not as good this season. I think that's going to be the issue for Arkansas in this game, and I couldn't agree with you more about Niall Davis. He just had a phenomenal second half of the season. Ohio State, not very confident, #2 for me.
Jim Haycock, the defense coordinator at Ohio State, I don't think gets enough credit because he's not nasty enough. He's just a nice guy.
And I think we like our guys like Will Muschamp and Bud Foster who spit and throws. And Haycock is he's kind of a professor. But you look at the last 6, 7, 8 years at Ohio State, they have played top-level defense.
So no homer picks on this. Trust me, this guy goes against Washington, takes Nebraska with 35, and you're not confident about Ohio State going with a 2
It's still technically a homer.
Well, still,
I mean,
but he's not confident. He's
Yeah,
not confident on that.
And I'm part of that 0-9. When Herbie and I played Georgia back in '92.
Yeah.
We lost. Actually, it was the first day of '93. We lost that game against Georgia, against
Good
Garrison
job.
Hurst and the boys. Yeah.
And I'm confident that Richmond's not on the big board for Todd McShay to even make a pick.
The
but
Spiders!
Let's go with this pick, this selection. Who do you have?
I think Robert Smith, that streak's going to stay alive. I think Ohio State goes down. That'll be 10 in a row against SEC teams in bowls. It's a great matchup between quarterbacks. Terrell Pryor, Ryan Mallett. I think that Pryor, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but certainly he has the athleticism and the talent to put up some big numbers against this Arkansas defense. But the Razorbacks are improved defensively this year. They really, there are times when they can get after you as a quarterback, and I think they'll put some pressure on them. Who has Ohio State beaten? That's what I keep coming back to. And you look at the schedule for Arkansas, how many big wins against really strong opponents they've had. I think that they're just more battle-tested. I think Ryan Mallett has a big game against this very good Ohio State defense.
The All-State Sugar Bowl featuring Ohio State against Arkansas. Terrell Pryor had a breakout game last year in the Rose Bowl. What do you expect to see from him against the Razorbacks defense?
I think Terrell Pryor needs to look for opportunities to attack the Arkansas defense as a runner, not just a thrower. Similar to the way that Cam Newton did when Auburn played Arkansas back in October. Newton had 188 yards and 3 touchdowns running the football. Now, Terrell Pryor doesn't like to run as much as Cam Newton does, but this Arkansas defense likes to get after the passer. They play a lot of man coverage. They're aggressive, and they're vulnerable sometimes to quarterback running.
Coaches from within the conference on those lists when new vacancies appear.
Well, it speaks well of the coaching prowess, obviously, and we've seen a lot of great coaches come from other conferences, coaches that don't have backgrounds in it. Gene Chiswick's a Florida grad. He's in the SEC. Will Muschamp, a Georgia grad. He's in the SEC. A lot of these great coaches started elsewhere. Urban Meyer's not an SEC guy. Nick Saban is not an SEC guy. Les Miles is a Michigan man. But once they get in this conference, they start shuffling around, not only at the coordinator position, but also as head coaches. It speaks well, I think, to the talent and the capabilities of the coaches within this conference. It also speaks to the level of competition that other programs within your conference, not only are they going to recruit the same players, they're coming after your coordinators, they're coming after your head coaches year in and year out. We're seeing salaries ratchet up. I think it's because these programs spend a lot of time, a lot of emphasis on their football programs, and it's only going to get higher and higher.
Bobby Petrino actually benefited from Urban Meyer's retirement with a new contract extension. It's going to keep him with the Razorbacks through 2017. Along with the salary raise, there's also now a non-compete clause to include the entire Southeastern Conference, not just teams from the SEC West. Good idea. Two blemishes in Arkansas's 2010 schedule. The early loss to Alabama at home, a game which the Hogs at one point were in command of, and then that shootout in Auburn where Ryan Mallett, the quarterback, gets knocked out with a concussion. Where does this 10-2 record, the finish for Arkansas, align with the Razorbacks' preseason expectations?
I think it's probably exactly where we thought they were going to end up. It's very crowded in the Western Division. We talked about it. They were a dark horse candidate to win that division and represent in the SEC championship game. It didn't happen, but largely because of the quarterback. Part of the reason why they won 10 games is because of the quarterback. And when you look at the game, I think, versus the University of Georgia, when they were winless on the road last year, and people said they just can't get it done in opposing team stadiums. Well, they were able to do that in Athens, a very lackluster season for the University of Georgia. But the final possession, 2 completions, one of them for a touchdown. Ryan Mallett getting it done on the road, getting that off of their back, and they were able to get things done down the stretch. This is the most explosive offense that Bobby Petrino has fielded at Arkansas. It's also maybe the most exciting team in the country right now.
You bring up a fiery offense, and I think about how we're all looking forward to the game for all the marbles between Auburn and Oregon. But which other bowl games are you most looking forward to watching? Is the Sugar Bowl high on that list?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the next game that I'm pointing to. And the idea that Ryan Mallett would have been spending time in the Big Ten at Michigan in a previous life is kind of interesting to watch this lineup versus Terrell Pryor at the quarterback position for the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is one for everybody to circle. Obviously, get nice and loose with the Sugar Bowl before you go into the national championship game, because this is going to be a good one. A lot of highly ranked teams with a lot of preseason aspirations. It didn't play out the way either program really anticipated, but still to end up Ohio State versus Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl should be a great matchup.
Jim Tressel, Ohio State's head coach, actually said he thought he was done worrying about Ryan Mallett when he had transferred away from Michigan. Au contraire, mon frere. And yes, that all-state Sugar Bowl between Arkansas and Ohio State is going to be a great one. Coverage of the Razorbacks' first ever appearance in a BCS Bowl begins at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Tuesday, January 4th.
Another aspect that makes this year's BCS lineup so intriguing, the quarterback play. You look at Ohio State and Arkansas, Terrell Pryor, Ryan Mallett, big boys that go about their business in very different ways. For the Buckeyes, 11-1, they get that at-large spot into the All-State Sugar Bowl, that nod over Michigan State. For Arkansas, big-time breakthrough. They're going to the Sugar Bowl for the first time since the late 1970s, and they are from the Southeastern Conference. So now, all this time leading up to this game, the Buckeyes are going to have to answer questions about the speed, the athleticism of the Southeastern Conference. Does this get blown out of proportion, Tom?
Doesn't get blown out of proportion with Ohio State unless they start beating SEC teams. And I think it's more than just about Ohio State. They may be carrying the torch for the entire conference in terms of a negative stigma, a perception about which's the best conference, which has the most speed and athleticism. Now Arkansas, is going to bring some weapons and a passing game. You got a team that's basically ranked in the top 2 in every category offensively for the SEC in Arkansas versus a team that is tops in every category defensively. This is going to turn into a chess match. Decision-making on behalf of Ryan Mallett. Can they protect him consistently? And will Niall Davis, who I know you love him, Davey, can he continue to be on this just monster rate in the run game that's provided Arkansas for balance? And now it's an opportunity, guys, for Terrell Pryor to have another coming out party in a bowl game, which he did a year ago versus Oregon, this time versus the SEC.
Yeah, and he needs to do that because he needs to provide some spark for that offense. He made plays. He kept plays alive last year against Oregon in the bowl game, using his stiff arm, using his feet. He's a better pure passer this year, but he's still the most dangerous when he gets outside the pocket. He's got some receivers, Sanzenbacher, Posey. I mean, they can make plays, but it still comes down to Terrell Pryor.
And did you hear his comments about if he played in a true spread like Cam Newton? He said his numbers would be ridiculous.
He's right.
Is that the call, though, to open it up with a bowl game against Arkansas?
Well, obviously you don't want to say it, but I mean, if you look at these two guys' games, Terrell Pryor's a gifted athlete. He's one of the better athletes in the country, period. I mean, Ryan Mallett's thrown for 7,200 yards in 2 seasons. It would take Terrell Pryor 4 years to do that. But look at Ryan Mallett's rushing. It would take him 1,000 seasons to get to where Terrell Pryor is at over 2,000 yards.
Literally, we'd be looking at the stopwatch.
And I understand where Terrell Pryor's coming from, but you're 30-4. I mean, you're dominating college football. It's not the same way that Cam Newton's doing it, and it's not as flashy. But you know what? I think in this game, you'll get more of it because you don't have to worry about his health. In this bowl game, if you're going to be smart, you're going to maximize his legs and his arms, use a lot more quarterback read, run him more because you don't have to worry about him getting hurt.
In their current systems, okay, Terrell Pryor and what Tressel is doing at Ohio State, Ryan Mallett, what Petrino's doing at Arkansas, what quarterback do you go with?
Wow. I'm going to go, you know what? I'm going to go with Ryan Mallett here. And I probably wouldn't have said that until I saw Ryan Mallett maybe turn the corner a little bit on the road this year in some tight games versus some quality opponents, because that had been a stigma of his prior to this year of not playing his best football against quality opponents or playing it on the road. And I think that's a mark of a championship player at the quarterback position. So I'm going to go with Ryan Mallett. I think they have so many weapons out wide. They're 5 deep at wideout, and they can create so many mismatches. Now with balance in the run game, I go with Mallett.
The interesting thing to me,
I'd love to know who you go with in this one with your system.
I agree. I go with Mallett because
Really?
I don't think really Terrell Pryor is a great quarterback, great athlete. I don't see them using him in the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Mallett is doing what they asked him to do: sit in the pocket and throw the ball, distribute it. But to me, this is more about the number 1 pass offense in the SEC versus number 1 pass defense in the Big Ten, and that is what we're going to see. How good does the Big Ten see enough passing offenses to be tested?
And that's interesting because when you look at Ohio State and you break down this season, the best passing attack, Denard Robinson, Ricky Stanzi. I mean, they haven't faced attacks that really have stretched them. And this is a situation, if you don't get pressure on the quarterback, it's over. I mean, Ryan Mallett will destroy you, so it's going to be pivotal for Hayward to get up the middle, get pressure, especially in the A-gaps against Ryan Mallett, to try to throw him off because he can sling it.
You know, the one maybe X factor that a lot of people won't be talking about here is Bobby Petrino managing the emotions of his players, being in a BCS environment for the first time, all the hoopla. This is relatively close to home. It's in SEC country, keeping the focus on the bowl game and the task at hand. Ohio State's been there, done that. This team knows how to understand that environment.
Yeah, except that they're talking about being 0-9 versus the SEC in bowl games. That's a huge thing. They're probably talking about that more than being in the Arkansas, talking about being in the BCS for the first time.
Well, don't forget about this. Ohio State's defense has been very good this year. Defenses across the board in the SEC have been a little down. Will this be one of the more difficult, if not the most difficult defense that Arkansas faces this season?
No.
SEC guy?
No, LSU is a better defense than Ohio State. I mean, if you look at that matchup and the way he carved them up for big plays, you know, even as simple as, you know, LSU trying to play cover 2 and Ryan Mallett throws a ball on the sidelines, you know, 17 yards down the field on the sidelines. You can't defend that. I'm not supposed to defend that. I'm supposed to defend it from the inside out. So how much can they adjust to the passing attack of Ryan Mallett? Because maybe it's good having 30 days because he's going to make you defend every single part of the field, and it's going to be different. He's not going to shut them down. And if you look at Arkansas on defense, they're stingy. They're good. I mean, they get a lot of tackles for a loss, sacks. They can play more aggressive because they know they're going to score points, but can they get enough stops? Ryan Mallett's going to score points. I don't doubt that against that great defense.
This will be a huge win for either program. All-State Sugar Bowl. Arkansas, Ohio State.
Ohio State, better football team, been there and is ready to do that. Get an SEC victory over an SEC team in the bowl.
I'm thinking 0-10. I think the Arkansas Pigs are going to call the Hogs, and I think they're going to win and score too many points.
Arkansas doesn't know any better. They're going to win.
The winner of this year's Heisman Trophy is, and the envelope. The winner is Cam Newton of Auburn University.
Canes trying to strike early in the third quarter. Intercepted again. Cameron Hayward, the big guy. Does he have enough gas? He's Campbell in front. Cameron Hayward, mini ironhead, still on his feet, all the way to the 15-yard line. Oh my goodness. 80 yards.
And we are now joined by 6'6", 290-pound defensive tackle from Ohio State, and Cameron Hayward. And Cam, let's talk about your season a little bit. At Ohio State, it's either the Rose Bowl or a BCS championship. That's the goal each and every year. When that doesn't happen, what's the reaction around town and in the locker room?
You know, I think we've had a great season, but, you know, we were kind of down on ourselves that we didn't make the Rose Bowl or the national championship. You know, around the field, you know, we think we've had a great year and looking to improve in the bowl game.
Well, you guys get to play Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. Not a bad reward indeed. And taking a look at their quarterback, Ryan Mallett, probably the tallest quarterback you'll ever have to tackle. He's actually a little bit taller than you, Cam. What's it going to be like facing Mallett?
Oh, yeah, you know, he's a tree. You know, he's a great competitor, a great leader for that team. He's putting up some amazing numbers, and I think we're going to have a great challenge, and we're looking forward to it.
When you look at Arkansas on tape, is there anything that scares you about their offense?
You know, they can score a lot of points quick, but, you know, they have a great running game. I think it goes a little unnoticed at times because Mallett's such a great quarterback, but, you know, they're good at both running and passing.
A trip to the Sugar Bowl. You guys have had some great bowl games since you've been at Ohio State, but for you, what's it going to be like to head down to New Orleans?
Oh, yeah, you know, in my career down there, you know, it's a great bowl to go to. You know, there's always great fans there, and to get a win there would be amazing.
All right, Cam, we, of course, see your coach, Jim Tressel, on the sidelines of every game with the sweater vest and the tie. How many days a week, Cam, do you wear the sweater vest?
I wear it occasionally. You know, I like to wear it on Saturdays. You know, I try to sport it a little bit different. You know, I'm not the straight red or gray. You know, I like to get some Argyle in there and mix it up a little bit, and even throw in the bow tie or two.
Cam Hayward, thanks so much for your time today. Best of luck in the Sugar Bowl.
Thank you for having me.
Now you take a look at just how successful the Ohio State program has been. 9 trips to the BCS. Jim Tressel's only been there 10 years. He has been money heading to the Sugar Bowl this year to take on Arkansas.
Ryan Mallett, perfect arm, height, size. It's like a telescope out there. I mean, he's so tall. He's like 6'6". I mean, that's probably the tallest quarterback in the NCAA. I went on the blitz. When I hit him, I was like, man, come on and go down. Goodness gracious.
Strong arm, can make some outstanding throws that I don't think anybody else I've seen in our league can make.
Oh, man, he get rid of the ball so fast.
Touchdown, Arkansas!
Everybody tries to compare his arm strength, his size. I would say Ryan is the first of his kind. There's only one Ryan Mallett.
And we welcome in the big man for the Razorbacks, quarterback Ryan Mallett. And Ryan, first things first, your career starts at Michigan, you transfer, you're at Arkansas, and now it ends in a BCS game, the Sugar Bowl against Ohio State. Was there ever a time along the way where you wondered if it was all worth it?
No, I don't know. It's pretty ironic how it all happened, and starting out at Michigan and that being a big rivalry, and I mean, just excited to play them in the BCS game.
Your reward is indeed the Sugar Bowl. It's Ohio State, and looking at tape of the Buckeyes, you got a little taste when you were at Michigan, but looking at this particular team, what makes Ohio State's defense so good?
You know, they're well coached and well versed in what they do. They're disciplined and they can tackle. And that's their main attributes.
Now, anytime we see Ryan Mallett on tape, everyone always jumps out, wow, how tall is that guy? 6'7". What's the biggest advantage for you being that tall?
Being 6'6", it helps me, be able to see a lot of things that other guys might not be able to. They might have to find passing lanes, whereas I can throw over guys, and I think that's the biggest advantage for that.
How about disadvantage? Maybe not on the football field, but in just one part of your aspect of your life. Any disadvantages to being that big?
Anytime you walk into a place, it's kind of like an elephant in the room. Everybody's always looking, regardless of who you are. When you're that big, you see somebody that's real tall, and everybody looks, and sometimes it feels kind of awkward.
Absolutely. Getting back to your season, you go on this hot streak at the end of the year, and the running game was such a big part of that, Ryan. Talk to me about how that running game really helped your team.
It was going to take us a little while to get it going until we really got it gelled. And once we got it gelled, then we could get our play action game going, and we could run the ball and we could throw it. It really just opened up our entire playbook.
Last thing, Ryan, you are off to New Orleans to play Ohio State in the Sugar Bowl. I'm sure you've heard some stories about New Orleans. How tough will it be for you to behave yourself on your bowl trip?
It won't be hard at all. I'm going down there to win a BCS game and, end up in the top 5.
Well, I think you will enjoy yourself nonetheless. A great treat, the Sugar Bowl, Ohio State against Arkansas. We thank you for your time today, Ryan. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks to Ryan Mallett. And guys, let's talk the Sugar Bowl. I mean, this is a neat game. Ohio State and Arkansas, first meeting between the two teams, and just two really compelling quarterbacks in this one. Ed, when you look at Mallett when he's at his best, what do you like about his game?
Well, he certainly improved a lot, especially in the back half of the season. His percentage of completion went up almost 10%. As we take a look at a little video from the Georgia game, you start to see a few things that he did improve on. Steps into his throw well, finds a guy down the middle of the field, a little behind him there. He does have some accuracy issues, but he started to read defenses better. Not a surprise when you're coached by Bobby Petrino. He sees the backside safety peeking in, throws it right over the top of his head. A pretty good throw with coverage. Of course, that's towards the end of the game. And then who can forget this great play? He sees the cornerback squat on DJ Williams, as he's supposed to do, and gets the ball out to Greg Childs on time. He gets it to Childs in time so that when the safety finally gets there, he's in bad position and he can make the cut. So he did improve pretty drastically in how he read defenses. But I cannot get over the fact that against good defenses, he tends to throw a ball away. Against Alabama and LSU this year, 5 combined interceptions. Who can forget those 2 at the end against Alabama? And he's going against, Jesse, a secondary in Ohio State that I think is right up there with LSU and Alabama. Maybe not quite as good as LSU, but I think they fit into that mold.
Ohio State a top 4 defense. It'll be tough.
And, of course, on the other side of the ball, Jess, you have Terrell Pryor, who, we all remember coming out of high school, the #1 player in America. When he's at his best, what do you like?
What I love about Terrell Pryor is how he's developed as a pocket passer. In his 3rd season now as a junior, he's done such a good job working on his pocket presence. He's able to work through progressions downfield, and because of that, this Ohio State coaching staff has been able to open up the playbook. And Terrell Pryor's completed 66% of his passes this year, but make no mistake about it. What makes Terrell Pryor special is his ability to move the chains because of his running ability. Here's a monster 4th down against Iowa late. He wants Dane Sanzenbacher in the slot running the corner route, but the Iowa linebackers get underneath it in zone coverage. He gets his eyes down, finds a lane to run. One thing you know, Ed, as a lineman, playing in front of Terrell Pryor, plays don't die in 3.5 seconds. You get downfield, you start getting blocks. Terrell Pryor able to get the first down, and Ohio State ends up winning this game. To me, after Cam Newton, Terrell Pryor is the best quarterback in the country on 3rd down. Since the start of last year, no player has more runs of 15 yards or more on 3rd down. That'll be a great challenge for Arkansas. It's a defense. They're very fast. They're very deep. They're 6th in the nation in sacks, but can they contain Terrell Pryor and keep him in the pocket?
All right, guys, let me put you on the spot here. Mallett and Pryor. Sugar Bowl's on the line. 2 minutes to play here. You can only take one. Who do you want under center? Mallett or your guy Pryor?
Well, I just told you how much I like Terrell Pryor and what he gives you. But I'm going to take Ryan Mallett in my 2-minute drill, and here's why. Ryan Mallett can make throws that 95% of the quarterbacks in the National Football League cannot make. There is not an area on the field that cannot be reached because of Ryan Mallett's arm strength. He's dialed into Bobby Petrino's offense, and you just showed a highlight, Ed. We've seen him come up big late in games through a game-winning touchdown pass against Georgia with 15 seconds left, through a game-winning touchdown pass against Mississippi State in second overtime. He has 28 school records. How could you not want Ryan Mallett behind center in the 2-minute drill?
Well, I'm going to take Kellen Moore from. Oh, whoa, that's right. It's between. Terrell Pryor, for me, it's all about the run. And you made the great point on that 3rd down against Iowa. 3rd and 7, 3rd and 5. You're driving down the field. The defense is backing out, trying to stop a touchdown. He can beat you. The other thing, too, you get 1st and goal inside the 10. If you got a timeout in your hip pocket, you can call a quarterback draw. Not that Mallett couldn't run that. Mallett's not a complete statue, but you get inside the 10-yard line, and now quarterback runs become something the defense has to think about.
Well, good news is we'll get to see these two face off against each other in the Sugar Bowl. Should be fun. A major announcement from the Ohio State University today that 5 players must sit out the first 5 games of the 2011 season for selling awards, gifts, and university apparel and receiving improper benefits in 2009. The players are quarterback Terrell Pryor, running back Daniel Herron, left tackle Mike Adams, wide receiver Devier Posey, defensive end Solomon Thomas. In addition to missing the 5 games, they must also repay the money to a charity. Well, this news could be catastrophic for Ohio State's hopes for another BCS berth next season. 4 of the 5 players suspended are starters, while Solomon Thomas may end up being the starter next season with senior Cameron Hayward leaving. Ohio State AD Gene Smith with Coach Jim Tressel tackling the issue.
There's a gut-wrenching feeling when you lose a game and you know you could have done better and so forth. And then there's one that goes beyond when you don't feel as if you did what you should do as people. And so, whatever the next step of gut-wrenching is, that's the way you feel. And we feel a responsibility for our kids, that, on and off the field. And so, obviously it's painful.
While we believe sanctions should be rendered because a violation did occur, we do believe they're severe, and we do believe that we will be able to submit mitigating circumstances for the NCAA to consider and hopefully reduce the number of games that our young men are currently being sanctioned with. We're obviously very pleased that the NCAA reinstated the young men for the bowl game, but we'll work on the appeal.
Ohio State's first 5 games include a trip to Miami to play the Hurricanes, the Big Ten opener against Michigan State, who shared the conference title with the Buckeyes and Wisconsin. Spartans and Bucks did not play this season. ESPN analyst Kirk Herbstreit this afternoon on the Colin Cowherd radio program.
This is clearly something that they've blown up the Ohio State, at least the media future, blown the program up here a little bit and shooken a lot of their fan base up. You know what? This program will get back to its core values of what Jim Tressel really believes in, which is team. It's a novel concept. Not worrying about the NFL draft, not worrying about what you're tweeting, but worrying about winning football games and trying to get better as a player and not worrying about the league. I've seen Terrell Pryor's high school coach already coming out and saying, well, he and the other juniors may now have to really reevaluate and think about the NFL. What? That's your reaction to this? It reeks of selfish immaturity, and it's not shocking. It happens, you move on, and in my opinion, Ohio State as a program, in the long haul, becomes a stronger program because of it. And hopefully, this will teach Terrell Pryor and the others involved a very valuable lesson about thinking more about the team and less about themselves.
Strong comments from Kirk Herbstreit there. 4 of the 5 suspended are starters. What makes the matters worse, the current backups at 3 positions are seniors. So who knows who will be playing for Ohio State when they take the field for those first 5 games next year. Let's bring in Mark May now, who is in Arizona. Mayday, we'll get your reaction to Herbstreit's thoughts a little bit later. But first, just your reaction overall when you heard the news. 5 games suspended at the start of next season.
Well, obviously, Ryan, you're shocked because it's Ohio State and these things usually don't occur there. But when I look at the total big picture, I look at the NCAA. And I think if you pick up a dictionary and you look up the word hypocrisy, you look up the word fraud, there should be parentheses behind those words in 4 letters, NCAA. Because if this situation happened to any school in a non-BCS conference, if this happened to any school in the SEC conference, and I'll give you perfect examples later, these players would not be playing in the Sugar Bowl. You look at A.J. Green at Georgia. When he was suspended, the first game back, he was suspended those first 4 games. They didn't say, okay, you can play in the first game and then we're going to suspend you later. Marcel Darius at Alabama. 2 players from the SEC conference. If this happened to Ryan Mallett at Arkansas going into the Sugar Bowl, I can guarantee you he would be suspended for the Sugar Bowl because that's the way the NCAA is. They will take certain conferences, particularly the Big Ten, their sacred cows in the Pac-10, and they won't punish them like they punish other conferences, particularly the SEC.
Mark, there's no doubt that the NCAA guidelines are ambiguous, they're open-ended, and that's to lead for interpretations by many different people to get the outcome that they want. That's a shame here. But make no mistake, this is about one thing and one thing only, and that's revenue. There is no way that the NCAA was going to allow a grenade to be thrown on the Sugar Bowl's ability to generate revenue. It's not happening. There is no way, and I agree with you on the hypocrisy remark. That's just another level of the hypocrisy. This has to do with the BCS Championship Series and revenue generated by bowls.
Tom, they're going to get their money regardless. Even if these players play or not, the conference and the schools are going to still get the check from the BCS. It's going to give them a black eye for 1 year, but the bottom line is what's right is right. If you're going to do something to a player from one school, why not equally punish the same player from another school or another conference?
Well, there's no question that that's a debate, and the same thing, though, has not happened yet with Cameron Newton, with the reinstatement coming, I believe for the same reasons. There is no way the NCAA and the SEC, for that matter, were going to throw a grenade on the season that Auburn is having. That's something that they'll deal with later. You and I are in agreement, maybe for some different reasons, but the NCAA picks and chooses how they want to handle things at their own discretion.
Regardless, Pandora's box has been opened. Mayday brought it up, the selling of A.J. Green's jersey that belonged to him. Yep. Terrell Pryor selling things that belong to him. This is a very slippery slope the NCAA is on right now. Let's bring in Craig James, who will be on the call for tonight's Navy-San Diego State Poinsettia Bowl. And Craig, let's continue with the story of the day. Ohio State, 5 players suspended, including Terrell Pryor, for the first 5 games next year. Now, Craig, Joe Schad is reporting that Pryor's high school coach had said Terrell was just trying to get some money to help out his family. This brings the question we've been asking for decades now in college football. What can be done here when there's players just trying to make a buck in a system that's making billions?
Well, I think we've all agreed that over the years we've talked about this, and it really is a slippery slope, because once you start down that and you start paying players, then, you know, where's the end to that? You know, who gets this and how much does this guy get? But when you hear stories about what Terrell Pryor, if it's true that he was trying to help his family out, selling personal private items that had been given to him, that's a sad story. I don't know what the number is, but it is for sure something that these players need to get monthly so that they can have a life. And I can say this, as a player, you don't have time to work, first of all. Number two, you're not allowed to work during the school year. So somewhere along the lines, with all of the money that we're talking about here, hey, get rid of building the big media guides that we get, that they send to us. The thousands of dollars that are wasted on printed materials that each one of these schools does. Do something somewhere, and you can come up with it. You can rub it. You can scrub it down. You can find money somewhere to help avoid a situation like Terrell Pryor did, if indeed that's the fact, where he was trying to help his mother out.
All right, Craig James, we'll see you back a little bit later in the program. Get a preview of tonight's Poinsettia Bowl. Thanks, Craig.
You got it.
Let's bring back in Mark May. Mark, you just heard from Craig James. Now he is obviously critical of the NCAA here, talking about a stipend for players. We heard from Kirk Herbstreit, who was very critical of the players, called them selfish. Is it somewhere in between there that this Ohio State case has happened?
Absolutely. I think that both Craig is correct and Kirk, but the bottom line is these are the rules now. Yes, players probably deserve to get paid, but okay, when are you going to start? If you're talking about a slippery slope here, so a starter gets more than a backup, so a player that's on scholarship gets more paid than a player that's not on scholarship, where do you draw the line? And I think that's going to create a bigger problem that you have now. My problem is these are the rules. The players know the rules, the athletic directors know the rules, the coaches know the rules, so unfortunately, even if you disagree with them, there are rules that have to be followed.
There are rules that have to be followed, and if you are to institute a stipend of some sort, I think with those stipends, if you went down what Craig termed to be a slippery slope, and I agree, you would have to in turn then have legislation that is so strict and so fierce in its penalty that it would be such a dramatic deterrent for these prospects to break the rules or attempt to break the rules that they wouldn't even think to conceive to break these rules. And I think it's the only way that you could possibly do it. But I agree with Kirk in the regard that the onus goes on the players. You're not going to convince me anymore that these kids don't know the difference between right and wrong, that they don't know that maybe if I do this, I could get myself and our institution in some trouble. I'm not buying it. I don't think the public's buying it anymore. They know, they've been educated on it, and guys like Jim Tressel and the administration are having to be responsible for 85 guys on scholarship who they can't hold the hand of every single day.
You're absolutely right, but the bottom line, it's the players. The players absolutely know what the rules are. You know what's right and wrong. You know inside your gut, that little voice inside your head that tells you, no, don't do this, this is wrong, not to accept things. You know that it's wrong, not to sell things, not to take money for anything. But here's the bottom line. If you're going to pay someone, okay, girls volleyball, men's gymnastics, men's soccer, when does it stop?
Yep.
There's never going to be enough money because every sport's going to step up and say, well, the football team's being paid. Why not the basketball team? Why not the soccer team? Why not the lacrosse team?
Absolutely.
It's a never-ending situation.
It is.
Much more to come on this latest from Ohio State, including now the question for Terrell Pryor, Tom. Does he go to the NFL? Does he avoid the 5-game suspension? Is he ready for the NFL? Is he selfish? As Herbstreit said, a lot more still to come on Ohio State.
They're 20 years old, 21 years old, looking at their senior year of playing, missing 5 games. So a lot's going through their heads, a lot's going through our heads right now. But we'll put a plan together, which, I'm sure will be fair and discussed. We'll talk about it, with the kids. We'll talk about it with our older kids like we always do and with our staff. And, hopefully we'll do the right thing.
For more on the story, we welcome in Tim May, Ohio State beat reporter from the Columbus Dispatch. And Tim, obviously a bomb dropped on Columbus today. What has the reaction been like?
Well, we basically kind of set it up. You could see the bomb coming to a certain extent, but as I was telling people earlier, I mean, the reaction is pretty much as stunning from 2 fronts. Number one, that there are 5 guys involved in a major sense, and 4 of them are starters on the offense, primary starters, including Terrell Pryor, Devere Posey, Boom Herron, 1,000-yard back, and Mike Adams, our left tackle. But they're going to miss 5 games.
but that's 5 games starting next season. Some of those guys might not even be here next season. The other stunning part is that they're going to get to play in the Sugar Bowl. That's stunning only from the standpoint of, why does it start next year and not immediately? But as the NCAA pointed out, they have special dispensation for situations like this, what they call special games and championship games, so as not to, unfairly tip the competitive balance one way or the other.
Tim, Terrell Pryor, certainly one of the biggest names in all of college football. He had said he would be back for his senior year at Ohio State. Do you believe this ruling changes that?
I would think it definitely would have to at least give him pause to think about leaving. But all of these guys had that on their minds one way or the other. But for sure, Terrell now, it's an interesting situation. Obviously, he's not going to make a run for the Heisman Trophy next year. There are all kinds of things that won't be out there for him. That's going to be what we'll be asking him for the next 6 months anyway. So.
All right, he is Tim May, Ohio State beat writer from the Columbus Dispatch. Thanks as always, Tim.
Sure, man.
Now, Ohio State has had a stranglehold on the Big Ten over the past several years. The Buckeyes have won at least a share of the conference championship each of the last 6 seasons, tying a record 6 straight Big Ten titles captured from the Scarlet and Gray back from 72 through 77. That streak could be in jeopardy next year. All right, Mayday, let's get back to what Kirk Herbstreit said earlier in the program, where he said, quote, this is a case of guys being selfish. This is a case of guys worrying about the NFL more than about their own college team. And in the long run, he could see the Ohio State football program being stronger with the exodus of the likes of a Terrell Pryor. Your thoughts on Herbie's remarks?
Well, I think that's kind of hopeful and wishful thinking from a former Buckeye player, because you're looking at a situation that these players gave this program and this university a black eye. You can always say, well, in the long run, it'll be better for us. Of course it will. But you're looking at the short term next season. You're looking at 4 returning starters on this football team, and 3 of them are stars. You're talking about your starting quarterback, a guy that's 6'4", that's 230, that runs a 4.3. It's kind of hard to replace that in your offense when you've built this entire offense around that one person. So you can say down the road it's going to be better. Well, you hope it's going to be better down the road. But is this the end of the story? Hopefully for these Ohio State Buckeyes and these fans and these players, this is the end of the story. But we don't know.
You know what's so disappointing to me is that some of these guys sold their Big Ten championship rings. It's one thing to give away a jersey or to sell some pants or shoes, but I've got to imagine that Jim Tressel is every bit as disappointed in his players devaluing a team accomplishment as he is in them violating NCAA rules of which maybe they didn't know they were violating. This is a big black guy. I agree with you, Mark. I think that Ohio State will recover down the road because they're Ohio State. They've got resources. Do I think they're going to recover and be better off in the interim? Absolutely not. Certainly not at the quarterback position.
2 big questions that I have moving forward that we won't know the answer to today. One, will there be an appeal from Ohio State to the 5 games? Could there be a reduction to that 5 games? And also, what are these guys going to look like in the Sugar Bowl? You know, with all this looming over their heads and so many questions leading up to that game against Arkansas, will be interesting to see what kind of Ohio State team goes on the field.
But the big news in college football on this day, the controversy surrounding Ohio State. Terrell Pryor and 4 other Buckeyes will be suspended for the first 5 games of the 2011 season for selling championship rings, jerseys, awards, and also receiving improper benefits from a tattoo parlor owner. Boom Heron, DeVere Posey, and offensive lineman Mike Adams part of it. Here's a reaction from athletic director Gene Smith.
They stated in their interviews with us, and they stated in their interviews with the NCAA, that they felt those items were theirs, that they owned them, and they had the right to do what they wanted to with them. And they wanted to sell those items to help their families.
I would have to think that there was no way that they just thought that that would be common practice, that that's just what you do. But on the other hand, you know, I don't know that they could have stated the bylaw or you know, said that, you know, I know for sure in my mind that this isn't right, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Now, to be clear, first 5 games of the 2011 season, that does not include the Sugar Bowl. All of these guys would be able to play in the Sugar Bowl. Here are the items that were sold and what they must repay to charity. That is an NCAA rule typically when situations like this arise. You see the championship rings. You see the gold pants. If you're not familiar with tradition at Ohio State,
get the gold pants for beating Michigan.
Wouldn't know anything about that, unfortunately.
Well, this is not going to set well with Ohio State fans that these guys had this type of disregard for things that Buckeye fans hold near and dear. There are all kinds of different issues to talk about with this, about when the suspension is going to occur, whether the guys should have the rights to sell the stuff. I mean, after all, it's their stuff. But where do you come down on it? What do you think about the 5 games to start next year as the punishment?
Well, it seems a little bit harsh to me initially, and you are talking about items that belong to the player. Now, I know that there have been comparisons made to what happened with A.J. Green and selling a jersey, but that involved an agent, so it's a little bit different to me there. But it does seem a little bit surprising. 5 games when it's a fairly obscure rule in the rule book. And once again, you make comparisons to other situations, and Cam Newton and the situation with his father down there at Auburn, and that whole case hinged on the fact that apparently Cam Newton did not know about what was going on there. So it seems eerily similar to me in that regard. But 5 games seems a little bit harsh, but then again, I'm a little bit surprised they're not suspending them right away. From what I hear, the NCAA is just saying that they thought that because of the special nature of bowl games, they just wanted to wait, but it just smacks of inconsistency.
Exactly. So what's the difference in your mind between not knowing the rule and not knowing that you were being shopped in the Cam Newton situation? Should there be any difference in that in the NCAA's eyes?
Well, it depends on what it is that you're doing, I think. And ultimately, you're talking about selling your own stuff. If you didn't know that selling your own stuff was wrong, that's one thing. But not knowing it, I think they're just different situations. You're talking about his father actually shopping him to a school and the son not knowing it. When, from all indications that I had, regardless of who did the shopping, that was illegal. So that's why, to me, that one seemed a little bit strange too.
I think a lot of the problem with the NCAA right now is that it has either a perception problem or just a plain old problem, because fans look at this right now, and you have to trust the governing body of college sports. And if you don't trust them, because the average fan looks at this and goes, wait a minute, you know, there was wrongdoing admitted, whether he knew or not. These guys said they didn't know the rules exactly. They get half a season. It seems a little incongruous.
It seems
to defy common sense. Is what it is.
It seems harsh
to it.
Yeah, it seems harsh right now. But as far as I know, that this is still open to appeal, so it'll probably be reduced on appeal.
That's a good point.
But why even put that full 5-game suspension in the first place?
Yeah, and you have the basketball issue with Bruce Pearl misleading NCAA investigators. You know, he gets not nearly as much percentage-wise of his season as these guys are getting. Des Bryant wasn't exactly truthful about having dinner. He loses his entire career at Oklahoma State as a result of it.
Well, let me try and defend the NCAA just a little bit here. And I think that they are doing the best that they have with the rules that are on the book currently. And I think,
and that's the problem.
I know, but the rules are what they are right now. And the NCAA president Mark Emmert actually spoke about changing the bylaws in reference to the Auburn situation with Cam Newton because of the difficulties that they encountered in that case. But the bottom line is they have to try and interpret the rules, and you're never going to make everybody happy in these situations.
I think the thing is, if you're going to have a rule, you need to enforce it evenly across the board, whether that's coaches, whether that's players, whatever it might be. I would wager that some of the Big Ten brass and some of those schools would wager it's a different kind of look, but it's always the perception of where your conference allegiance is, or the conference you work for, and your perception that the other guy, we made a mistake, the other guy's cheating. That's the way people look at it. Here are the 5 games to start the 2011 season. Now, we should hasten to add the caveat that there is the possibility that there would be no punishment, in fact, since they're playing in the Sugar Bowl, should these guys decide to go pro, which all of them can. And in the Sugar Bowl, what does the Ohio State University need?
They're going to need some starting blocks. This pass rush hasn't really been impressive this season. Those defensive linemen, they're going to need to get in those starting blocks and take off after Ryan Mallett, make sure that they can try and get to him.
It's been a great year for Terrell Pryor, but next year's not going to start so great. Pryor, among 5 Ohio State players suspended for the first 5 games of the 2011 season, is eligible to play in the Sugar Bowl. Begs the question, will Pryor skip his final season now in Columbus and jump to the NFL? If he does, what about his potential as a pro? Here's Tom Luganville.
Terrell Pryor may have a tough decision to make. Do you stay for your senior year and maybe play just 7 games? Or do you enter the NFL draft that may or may not take place. And the deadline for declarations in January, so the NFL issues may not be resolved by then. But if Terrell Pryor is smart and he decides to declare for the draft, he will allow himself to be evaluated as an overall athlete and not just as a quarterback. Because I don't think the grade he'll receive from the NFL as a quarterback will be high enough from a draft standpoint to force him to enter into the draft. As an athlete, however, it may very well do just that.
Again, these players are eligible to play in the bowl game this season. They will be asked to sit out the first 5 games of next year. Assuming that's the case, Robert, where does that leave the Buckeyes?
Well, if all of those players are going to be missing, obviously it's going to be very tough for Ohio State. Anytime you have your quarterback out, your running back out, your best receiver out, that's a problem. But you also need to consider left tackle Mike Adams. With Mike Adams being out, that would be 3 starters gone from that offensive line. Add that to the fact that Ohio State's going to have 7 players on defense leaving. Talk about some problems right there.
Just to give you a preview, the first 5 games of next season for Ohio State: Akron, Toledo, at Miami. That could be trouble on September 17th, Colorado, and then on October 1st, their last game out, it's Michigan State.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And, you know, I've been one of those NCAA bashing guys here and there in the past. But I think in this case, they're trying to interpret flawed rules. And I think that's the problem. And I think that the university presidents, athletic directors need to do more to go back and look at these bylaws. This is something that Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, mentioned in the Cam Newton case, and I think certainly it applies here as well. People are concerned about the discontinuity and the application of some of these suspensions and reinstatements, and I think what you really need to do is tighten those rules down a little bit.
Here's Todd McShay with the players to watch in the BCS.
Ohio State running back Boom Herron. The Sugar Bowl features a great quarterback matchup between Terrell Pryor for the Buckeyes and Arkansas quarterback Ryan Mallett. Arkansas's weakness as a defense is versus the run. Their back 7 do not wrap up in space very well. It's not a good tackling group. Watch out for Boom Herron. That one cut and go style with the burst that he has and his ability to break tackles in the open field, I think he could have 2 or 3 big runs and carry the ball upwards of 15, 20 times in this game and become an unexpected star in the Sugar Bowl.
What's the mood in Columbus in the wake of the suspensions?
I think people are officially at the point of trying to move past this. I think there was some confusion early on, and it was really divided reaction. Some people were angry at the NCAA. Some were angry at the players. Some were confused about how they could be suspended next year but play in the Sugar Bowl. It was really divided, I think. There was a lot of moving parts on this. But I think now that the holidays are done and we're back back to Monday, they're ready to see if Ohio State can beat Arkansas, because it really was a confusing 4 days, and I don't think people are going to come to their own conclusion, so they just want to sort of maybe forget about it and think about football for now.
Now, you referenced the kids can play in the Sugar Bowl, but whether they do or not, that's up to Jim Tressel. Any chance they don't play?
Yeah, they got back together. They reported back yesterday, had a team meeting last night. The 6 players involved did get up in that meeting and apologize to the team. Jim Tressel had the seniors on the team talk about it. The seniors are supportive of those players playing in the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, ultimately, that is Jim Tressel's decision. The plan is at this point that they will travel with the team to New Orleans when they leave on Wednesday. And then again, it will be up to Tressel to decide what exactly they do. I would be very, very surprised if they don't play, but I think there is a possibility of maybe some sort of sanctions from Tressel in terms of maybe they wouldn't start, something like that, but I do think these 6 are going to play, as the NCAA has said they can.
Thank you very much for the information, Doug. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric.
Our Hall of Fame coach Lou Holtz knows a little something about this type of situation. In 1978 for the Orange Bowl, he suspended 3 players, but the Arkansas Razorbacks went out and beat Oklahoma 31-6 anyway. Coach, would you allow the 6 players in question to play in the Sugar Bowl?
Absolutely. I know there isn't a lot of consistency with the NCAA because in the past they've kept players from playing in the bowl game. But in this case, as a coach, you look at it and you say, is this punishment enough? I believe the punishment's excessive. I would certainly allow them to play in the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas, not ask them to play like it was going to be the last game they're ever going to play for Ohio State.
Now, next season, 5 of the 6 will be suspended for 5 games. How do you treat them on the club at that point in time?
Well, I think you take take them and say, okay, you're going to be part of the team in spring practice in 2 days. Once we get into the season, you're going to go down to the scout squad. Prior, you're going to go down and you're going to throw against the best defensive secondary you're going to see the entire year. You're going to grow, you're going to develop, you're going to be in an all-our meeting, you're going to learn our game plan, but you aren't going to be involved those first 5 games. Now, let's look at the positive thing. You're going to be fresh, you're going to be healthy. We still have 7 of our last state conference games still there. We can still win the championship. Let's move on. This is the way it is. We can't change it. Let's go forward and make the most out of a bad situation.
Coach, do you have any sympathy for these players, considering the Ohio State athletic director came out and said, we may not have adequately explained to these student athletes that they couldn't sell some of these things like Big Ten championship rings?
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for them because it was their material. If they want to sell the ring, that's their right to sell the ring. I don't think you should be able to sell it to an alum because they will give you an inflated price. But if you need the money and you want to sell that ring to somebody in your hometown, I don't find anything wrong with it. They didn't steal it. It was theirs. It was theirs to do with what they want. You pick up the paper this morning, I read where a guy sold his ring for $500,000 through a charity auction. I just think it's fair. Let them do with it what they want, but you cannot sell it to an alum.
Apparently the NCAA feels a little differently, but I certainly understand your position there. It's very fair. Coach, thank you very much for the time.
Always a pleasure to be with you.
The Razorbacks come into this contest against Ohio State on a 6-game win streak, averaging over 42 points per outing in that span. Junior quarterback Ryan Mallett continues to impress. For a second straight season, he has passed for over 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. ESPN's Tom Rinaldi has more on how Mallett's on-field success is now complemented by improved maturity.
Determination, disappointment, exhilaration, frustration, intensity, confusion, elation, win, loss.
For quarterback Ryan Mallett, the physical part of the game has come easy.
Mallett fires into the end zone. Touchdown, Arkansas!
The emotional part has been tougher, a point he discovered only after watching tape of himself after last season.
I went back and I watched every game. Frankly, I was embarrassed sometimes.
Mallett to throw, looking to the end zone. Touchdown, Arkansas!
The LSU game after we scored a touchdown last year in the final minute, and, I ran off the field. I was so excited, and, an embarrassment.
Emotionally, he had emptied the tank after we scored that touchdown. He wasn't prepared to go back out there and provide the same energy that you would need in overtime.
Arkansas lost that game in overtime, but for Mallett, it was a turning point. In the offseason, McGee had Mallett concentrate on his emotions, using a series of self-help books to build a greater connection between performance, passion, and patience.
Well, he said, you've always got the mental preparation and you're always physically prepared. The only thing you don't control all the time is your emotions. He said, once you get that, there's going to be nobody that can stop you.
I call it being balanced. Playing, functioning, talking to your teammates, everything with the same demeanor, never getting too high, never getting too low. I think he's bought into it.
This season, from staying calm through double overtime against Mississippi State to coming back from a hard loss to Alabama, Mallett has controlled his emotions more. Perhaps the best example came against Auburn. After suffering a first-half concussion, he was desperate to return, but instead transferred his energy into supporting backup Tyler Wilson.
He wanted to be out there. You could see it in his eyes. But, he respected, the authority within the locker room, shook his head and, turned the reins over to me, gave me a fist bump, patted me on the back and said, go get him. That was a grown-up moment that I saw from Ryan.
Mallett's emotional equilibrium has shined the most in the toughest games.
Touchdown, Arkansas!
Don't take long.
Oh, what a play!
Playing against ranked opponents this season, he's second in the country in passing yards and passing touchdowns.
Touchdown, Arkansas!
It has all to do with his demeanor, the way he approaches the game, and the way that he functions when the game's on the line.
It's because of the composure that he has now versus this time last year.
I think it goes back to my emotions. When I stay just calm and cool, we were able to just go out there and do what we do best. Belief, clarity, calm, poise, victory.
Tom, thank you. Auburn's escalation into the BCS National Championship game opened up an at-large berth in the SEC-affiliated All-State Sugar Bowl. 10-2 Arkansas gets the call for its first ever appearance in a BCS Bowl. They'll take on one of the three-way champions of the Big Ten, Ohio State. Buckeyes head coach Jim Tressel joking after he heard about this matchup. He thought he was done worrying about Ryan Mallett after the quarterback transferred out of Michigan. Ohio State's defense vaunted. Second in total defense in the nation, number 3 in scoring defense. Of course, they're going to be challenged by Mallett and that high-octane offense of the Razorbacks. Which is going to win out here?
Well, you know, you've seen Arkansas, and they faced some good defenses already this season. I think you rewind to the last game of the season versus the LSU Tigers. That's one of the best pass defenses in the country before they played the Arkansas Razorbacks. Ryan Mallett still threw for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ohio State, excellent in the pass defensive area, also excellent versus the run, so that will be a challenge. But now Davis running the football on the ground will absolutely help Ryan Mallett's exploits in the passing game. They've got a great wide receiving core at Arkansas. They've got an excellent weapon at the tight end position with DJ Williams. They're going to pose a number of different threats versus Ohio State, a team that plays great defense, but when they face teams that are really good in one dimension, like a Wisconsin Badger team, they have had their difficulties.
Now, which factor do you think is the biggest key to Arkansas's success against Ohio State? I think one of the best matchups the entire bowl season.
Yeah, to me, it's going to start and end, as it always has with Arkansas Razorbacks, with Ryan Mallett's play. And we've seen it even this season. They're only a 2-loss team, and if you rewind all the way to Alabama, if Ryan Mallett can protect the football a little bit better in the second half, they arguably win that game. But they were not able to do that. He's proven that he can win on the road. He's had an excellent season. It's helped that now Davis has come along. But ultimately, and the coaches have said this, Ryan Mallett acknowledges it, he has to have good ball games for them to win them. And if that's the case, he's going to have to perform really, really well versus an excellent pass defense in the Ohio State Buckeyes.
And who knows what could have happened in the game at Auburn had Ryan Mallett played.
Didn't even finish the game.
Didn't get to finish the game. You never know. January 4th, the All-State Sugar Bowl, BCS Bowl between Arkansas and Ohio State.
I'm going to go with Arkansas. Arkansas is the hottest team in the country, in my opinion. Ohio State, maybe a little bit of a letdown playing in this ball game. And obviously, they've struggled versus the SEC. I like the Razorbacks.
The All-State Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl. Number 6 Ohio State seeks to beat an SEC squad in the bowl for the first time since January 4th when they beat number 8 Arkansas. The Buckeyes have plenty of experience in BCS bowl games. Arkansas, on the other hand, has absolutely none. Take a look at the numbers here, and both teams come in averaging a whole lot of points. 37 for Arkansas, 39 points per game for the Buckeyes. The defense is stout as well. This is January 4th, 8:30 on ESPN.
I think we've had a great season, but, we were kind of down on ourselves that we didn't make the Rose Bowl or the national championship. Around the field, we think we've had a great year and looking to prove in the bowl game. To end my career down there, it's a great bowl to go to. There's always great fans there, and to get a win there would be amazing.
They're well coached and well versed in what they do. They're disciplined and they can tackle. And that's the main attributes. I'm going down there to win a BCS game and end up in the top 5.
Let's bring back in Mark May and Mayday. Both of these teams known for their quarterbacks. We just heard from Ryan Mallett. Of course, Terrell Pryor enters this game with a cloud over him, suspended for the first 5 games of next season. If he comes back for his senior year, how do you see the quarterbacks playing out in this game?
Well, I think you're going to look at Ryan Mallett. This is a quarterback. He's got some nice receivers and Joe Adams and Jarius Wright. Now all of a sudden you've got Niles Davis running the football. But I think when you look at this game and break it down, it will probably come down to quarterback play. And I like the way the Ryan Mallett throws the football. The 30 touchdowns this season, over 3,500 yards passing. He's got a running game now. And if you look at Ohio State, yes, they are the 4th-ranked pass defense. But 4 of those teams they played offensively rank between 102 and 115 throwing the football. So they did have a lot of games where they played offenses that weren't very good. Now they're going to play one of the best passed offenses in the nation.
You look at Ohio State, Mark, they're not only carrying the torch for themselves, but for the entire Big Ten from a perception standpoint that they cannot defeat an SEC opponent. 0-9 versus the SEC. They've got to go down there and prove for themselves and for the rest of the conference that the Big Ten is on par with the SEC. And I believe they're going to do it with the run game, whether it's Terrell Pryor or it's Boom Herron. They're going against the 10th-ranked rush defense in the SEC in the Arkansas Razorbacks, although they're also the 2nd-ranked defense for tackles for loss. So they're going to have to corral Terrell Pryor. But I agree with you on one point. If this thing turns into a scoring race, Ryan Mallett's the guy to go with. He's proven he can win the game with his arm. That's not something we've seen much of from Terrell Pryor.
Well, a game that would have been talked about, Big Ten against SEC, will now be talked about. How will Ohio State play with the suspensions that loom heading into this Sugar Bowl game?
BCS Bowl game that we're eagerly anticipating for lots of reasons, of course, is the Sugar Bowl, Ohio State and Arkansas.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great match. If you look at Niles Davis, he's had a strong second half of the season. November, he's rushed for 631 yards, 6.7 yards per carry. And then this kid right here, DJ Williams, he's a fantastic tight end. And then you got the Tat 5. These guys, I don't know if they're going to play. They've been allowed to play by the NCAA, but I think Tressel still has a decision to make. Ohio State and Arkansas is going to be a great Sugar Bowl, depending on if the Tat 5
The Tat 5? Yeah. These are guys with a tattoo parlor that sold some merchandise, some memorabilia and stuff today. Actually, there's 6 if you want to throw in linebacker Jordan Whiting, who's suspended for 1 game. Adams, and you got Heron, leading rusher, second leading receiver on the list there, Posey, and of course Terrell Pryor, the bell cow quarterback. These guys have all apologized for their actions, been hit with suspensions for next year, but somehow mysteriously allowed to play in this game. And the Sugar Bowl, before they selected Ohio State, was aware of this situation. They went to Ohio State. Jim Delaney got involved, urging the NCAA to push back the suspensions until next year, even though the violations occurred in 2009. Des, does the NCAA decision-making confuse you right now? It used to be like the Sergeant Schultz, I see nothing. Yeah. And then it was Joseph Stalin, off to the gulag. Now you don't know what to expect.
Extremely confusing. It's like Chinese arithmetic right now. I mean, it's like 4-year-olds on the stage acting out a play that they've never ever seen before. They're just making it up as they go along. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that these players who have violated a rule, which I don't agree with the rule, but that's another discussion, but they have violated this rule, and then you tell me that they can play in a bowl game, but they can't play in 5 games in 2011. I don't understand. There's no consistency in the way that the NCAA issues out its punishment, and that causes the problem. And then we always talk about messages. What message is this sending to future student athletes? Think about that. So I think this is just crazy. The NCAA's integrity has been hijacked by greed. It's all about money.
Yeah, that's very well said. But I think Coach Tressel missed a great opportunity to put a stamp on the program at Ohio State once and for all for good. These 6 players, whatever the NCAA said, should not play in the bowl game. I don't care what the NCAA say. He should say, no, they're not going to play. Let it go.
Yeah, it remains to be seen what he ultimately will do until they go out there and play. He's been kind of hush-hush and has talked about what the future lies for Ohio State. I think the big issue here, and I know this bowl game is a big story, whether they're going to play or not. The NCAA has cleared them. Huge story. Let's look ahead. Best case scenario for Ohio State and Jim Tressel. These players all decide to come back. Ohio State starts the year in August next year. A lot of people are saying they don't have a chance, they don't have Pryor. And all of a sudden, Jim Tressel, which is Jim Tressel's way, gets the team to buy into us against the world. They play Miami on the road, who's breaking in a new coach. Did you see Miami play yesterday? They're going to win that game. The other challenge, they play Michigan State at home, a team that has a lot of seniors this year. Really good chance they're going to be 5-0 without these players. Their toughest game of the year is Game 6 at Nebraska. Does Ohio State at that point go 5-0 without these players? And do you bring them back and then do you start these players? Or do you decide to say, well, we've really built great team chemistry without you. We're just going to decide to go on without you. How does he get to week 6 next year if he's 5-0? And how does he get them and phase them back into the program?
That's interesting. You're already in next October.
I'm just saying that.
Back to this game, though. Why is it Jim Tressel's responsibility? If the NCAA doesn't put the punishment, why is it the coach's responsibility? After they told the Sugar Bowl, they told basically Paul Houlihan, he admits it's selfish, but he wants those guys to be there for the integrity of his game. Why is it his responsibility?
Because everything that he stands for, above any other coach in the country, every single thing that the pillars of Jim Tressel's programs have just been knocked down with a hammer.
But what if he tells these guys, he made these guys promise they're going to come back next year. It's non-binding, but he made them promise. He said, you're not going to go to New Orleans for the bowl game. That's very unusual as well.
I just think there's an opportunity there.
Right.
Great
this is his opportunity to do.
Go ahead, Elsie.
I still think it's his chance once and for all to put his stamp on Ohio State.
Right, exactly.
Once. Say, this is it. This is what I stand for. I don't care what the NCAA
Who cares if you lose?
Exactly.
That's right.
It's more about doing what you believe.
This is his opportunity to teach life lessons, not only to these guys, but his team and guys coming behind them. This is what's something that Woody Hayes. I mean, listen. What would Woody Hayes do? Thank you. Thank you.
That's even worse than the old NCAA gulag. That's wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, come on. Can you imagine if someone came into Woody Hayes' office and said, you know, this kid sold his gold pants? You know? Oh man, please! That's not even an option.
Yeah,
it's not an option. You would be so afraid of Coach Schembechler that you wouldn't behave that way.
Right.
That's why they didn't have those problems.
I still think 5 games ridiculous. I think it'll get knocked in. I don't think they'll have.
I agree with you.
That's
right.
way
You're right.
too
I agree. Some guys are going to go to the NFL anyway.
Yeah, that probably will happen too.
Well, Michigan's arch rival, Ohio State, Terrell Pryor, he's never lost to Michigan, did sell a pair of gold pants, the trinket you get for winning it, and it resulted in a big controversy. So how's he reacted since then? Here's Jim Tressel.
You know, I think he's prepared hard. I think he's, you know, done all the things that, you know, we've asked him to do, and had the same type of film preparation and practice preparation, and, you know, I have not seen any drop-off, you know, in any of that. But I also know this about him, and that's what I love about him, is that it really disappoints him when he doesn't do what he thinks he can do. He really wants, you know, to do well, and so he works hard to try to do that.
And frankly, Pryor has done that. They're 11-1. They're in a BCS game, only a bad half of football, perhaps keeping them from being in the national title discussion. But Pryor also among 5 guys who are going to be suspended for the first 5 games of next season. Now, all of these guys that you see on the list and what they have done this year, Herron and Posey, huge parts of the offense, along with Mike Adams, who starts at left tackle. But these guys have all pledged to Jim Tressel that they will come back next year and they will serve their suspension. Now, Pryor intimated earlier this week that he was going to do that, but he didn't necessarily want to speak for everybody else, that they necessarily wouldn't change their minds, because all of those guys that you saw mentioned are eligible to declare for the NFL draft. And certainly the 4 starters would be guys who would be, you would think, an opportunity to play in the NFL. But they're eligible to play here tonight against Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl. Now, there's precedent the other way. A few years ago, Alabama was here. Andre Smith was sent home. He didn't play immediately. Should these guys be playing tonight against Arkansas?
No, you just gave a great example about Andre Smith. And I wish there would be some consistency with the NCAA, because this is an integrity matter with college football. If you go back to A.J. Green at Georgia, he was suspended immediately for his next game, and Marcel Darius the next game. If you look at the situation for Ohio State, it's because it's a bowl game. There are dollars involved. These players should not be playing in this football game. And for the integrity of the game, Jim Tressel should step up and not let these players play, or at least sit them for the first half of the game to make a statement that he doesn't agree with what happened.
The one thing, Coach, before you jump in, Tressel did say that if they didn't pledge to come back, that he wasn't going to bring them on the trip. I mean, I don't know.
That's like telling an 8-year-old kid that's going trick-or-treating in the neighborhood, only eat 1 piece of candy. Promise me that.
Okay, now after this game, their crime, they go to jail, do they, for X amount? They didn't do anything illegal. They didn't steal them. They didn't rob them. They belonged to theirs. They broke the
rules. Yes,
okay.
These are the other players that were suspended.
The rule. Let me say this. The NCAA does a lot of things that people don't know. Number 1, you cannot play in a bowl game if you do not pass 6 hours of preceding semester. There are a lot of players who have been declared academically ineligible. The other thing that people aren't aware of, the NCAA, for every bowl team, every team is going to play in a bowl, they say, give us your practice schedule. The day before, they notify you and say, we're going to drug test these 30 players. Everybody plays in the bowl. You don't know what 30. Some of them are stars, some of them are random. Some of the people don't pass that drug test. That's when they say, well, they violated team rules, whatever. They determine that. I don't believe that the rule came down for whatever reason. Your problem should not be with the players. Your problem should not be with Ohio State or Jim Tressel. Your problem should be with the NCAA. They ruled them eligible, and the the case, period, and I say this to the players, it'll be no distraction. That's 6 months down the road. There are a lot of things going to happen before that.
Yeah, they can go to the NFL. And I said my problem is with the NCAA. They should be more consistent in this situation.
Okay.
That's the problem I have, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't say one kid from one program does one thing, another kid does the same thing from the other program, and it's two different situations, two different suspensions.
I agree, but it doesn't have a thing to do with the players or Jim Trust or Ohio State.
Yes, it does.
They acted the right. Go see the NCAA, period.
It has to do with this game tonight. It has to do with Jim Trust, because it's up to him. The ultimate decision is if he steps up and says, you know what, guys like Chris Billman right now are spinning like a top out there. They're so mad at the situation.
But Tressel certainly has the jurisdiction to sit whoever he wants to, and he said that he wouldn't bring them to New Orleans if they didn't pledge to come back and serve their sentence. At least, and Mark is rolling his eyes. I'm just reporting the facts. That's a fact. That's beyond dispute. Jesse Palmer joins us now in Arizona. Jesse, what do you think? Should these guys be allowed to play in the Sugar Bowl?
Jim Tressel is making a giant mistake if he plays these suspended players tonight. If Jim Tressel plays the suspended players, he's actually increasing the likelihood that one or more of these guys declares for the National Football League draft after tonight's game. What happens if running back Dan Herron just goes off tonight for 150 rushing yards, or DeVere Posey brings in 10 catches? These two guys after tonight may think, you know what, we're suspended for the first 5 games next year anyway. We just had monster bowl games. We're going to the National Football League right now. If I'm Jim Tressel, I am sitting these guys. I am not allowing them to play tonight, because it forces these guys to come back next year, collect more game tape, improve their NFL stock. If I'm Jim Tressel, I'm looking at next year and finding the best ways to make us the most competitive football team we can be. And you're going to need all those 5 players to be back next year to do that. So if I'm Jim Tressel, I'm sitting these guys. What's the difference if you win or lose tonight anyway? Think about next year. Think about the benefit of this football team.
Jesse's absolutely correct in this matter, but I go back to this situation. What if, because we discussed this the other night, what if the players that are in for Terrell Pryor and Boom Harum that substitute for them the first 5 games next year end up being starters and stars, and they're undefeated during that suspension?
And they've got a quarterback coming in named Braxton Miller, who they believe is going to be a star. I mean, it's an issue. Yeah. And, you know, there are so many layers to this, because you guys, in many ways, were arguing different things. You were saying change the rule, and the other position is they violated the rule in place. I happen to agree with you. I think the rule's ridiculous. You know, if you got your stuff, you ought to be able to sell it, but it's a rule, and nobody else is allowed to do it, so they shouldn't be allowed to do it either, at least right now, until they change the legislation. But right now, they're expected to play tonight, but SEC has had very good record in BCS games, better than anyone else, 14-5. Why has the SEC been so difficult, not only for Ohio State, but for everyone facing them in the BCS?
Because when you get to a BCS or a bowl game, you're not impressed or awed by anybody else. For example, this year, Ohio State has not beaten a top 25 team. Arkansas, even though they lost 2 games, has beaten 4 teams in the top 25. There are no easy games in the SEC. No matter where you go, you're going to play teams with talent. There's going to be enthusiasm. Their fans are excited. I remember we played Ohio State in a bowl game 2 years back to back. The first year, having coached Ohio State under Woody Hayes, won national championship, you go, wow, play Ohio State. You put that film on, you say, this is no that big a deal. I mean, they aren't that fast. They aren't that. And you go out the game, and you're not intimidated. You're not awed. You expect to win.
I think when you look at the SEC compared to the Big Ten, the SEC, the teams are battle-tested. It's almost like when I played for the Washington Redskins in the NFC East. You played the Giants, you played the Cowboys, you played the Eagles. Each and every week you're battle-tested, so you're ready for the playoffs. You're razor sharp. Once you get to that BCS game, this is nothing compared to what you faced during the regular season. And I think when you look at the entirety of the teams, it is a great matchup with the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think it's overall speed when you look at the NFL draft and you look at the players that are drafted on defense from top to bottom. The majority of players are drafted out of the major conferences. It's always the SEC on top getting to the next level. And when you look at the Big Ten and the matchups, I look at the cornerbacks versus wide receivers, linebackers versus running backs, defensive linemen particularly versus offensive linemen. That first step, that quick twitch, that speed, that overall depth and speed, and particularly on special teams, I don't think it's a great matchup for the Big Ten versus the SEC.
You know, a friend of mine worked on Urban Meyer's staff before they played Ohio State for the national championship, and his task was to break down the video of Ohio State. And once he had broken down the entire season, Urban went to him and said, well, what do you think? And he looked at him and he said, Coach, 2 touchdowns better at least. At least. Now, at the time, Urban didn't want to hear that, but it turned out to be true.
In the SEC, there's such a slim margin of victory. And so you're used to being in real hard-fought games, and you're not intimidated, whereas Ohio State's never really tested. You look at them, the game's over at halftime. Everybody's eating hot dogs, drinking Coke.
I will say that the teams from the SEC that have given Ohio State trouble in the last couple of meetings, LSU and Florida, more of the vintage SEC-style defenses. And while Arkansas gets great pressure on the passer, I don't think they fall into that category. They're not really great against the run, so maybe a little bit of a reprieve for the Buckeyes tonight in the All-State Sugar Bowl. It ought to be a great game. Both teams ought to be able to put some points up on the board. Ohio State wins if
they stop the big play. Ryan Mallett, 79 times, has thrown passes of over 25 yards. On the other hand, Ohio State has only given up 26 passes over 25 yards 2 years. So stop the big play, you win Ohio State.
Well, Ohio State wins if Terrell Pryor becomes a dual-threat quarterback again instead of a pocket quarterback. Start running the ball. You've rushed for over 600 yards. When you run the ball effectively, Ohio State wins, and they're tough to stop. Become a dual-threat quarterback, and they win.
You know, the number of times that he's tried to run on 3rd and 5 or more have dropped dramatically from last year. They might need him to do that against a pretty good pass rush from the Razorbacks tonight. On the other side, Arkansas wins if, Mark.
The legend gets going in this football game. That's Ryan Mallett. In the last 2 years, he does. In the last 2 years, he's had 79 passes of 25 yards or more this season, 35 passes of 25 yards or more. If he throws the ball vertically, guess what? Arkansas wins.
No. Arkansas wins if now Davis rushing for 150 yards. He's done it the last 3 games. That is a key to Arkansas' success.
Bob Petrino's offenses have always been at their best when they've been balanced, and Niall Davis's emergence has allowed them to do that. It's going to be a great game here in New Orleans tonight. And while Ohio State comes in here as champions of the Big Ten once again, they also come in winless all-time in bowl games against the SEC. 0-9. Even Jermail Hines, defensive back, said, we know about it, we're aware of it, we want to shut people up. What do you make of Ohio State's struggles against SEC teams in the postseason?
Well, obviously in the past they haven't been good enough to beat them, and I think it's because they don't have superior athletes like the SEC did. But the bottom line is, this is a great opportunity in this atmosphere at the Sugar Bowl for Ohio State to get the monkey off their back and finally defeat a team from the SEC Conference in a bowl game.
I think this is the year that they might be able to do it, because after they got beat by Florida so decisively, Ohio State changed their recruiting where they would get great speed. And talking to their coaches before the game, they think they have the speed to compete with Arkansas or anybody else in the SEC now.
Well, Coach Jim Tressel, you have been in more BCS games than any coach in America. You and Bob Stoops are tied. What have you learned in those games that you can implement tonight to win this game?
Well, you always play against good teams in BCS games, and we're playing against a great Arkansas team, and you better play your best. You're not going to be successful in BCS games, but it's a tremendous thrill, and it's a privilege to play in these, and our kids are excited.
You've had some kids disciplined by the NCAA this week. What do you expect from Terrell Pryor tonight? Will he start, and how much will he play?
Well, what I expect from everyone in our outfit is that we've got 24 seniors going out and one coach moving on to a head coaching job, and every single one of us better play our best. And, of course, Terrell's going to play and play well, I hope.
Coach, Arkansas, we know how well they throw the ball, but their effective running game makes them very difficult to defend. Where do you start?
Well, balance is what they have. And if you let them run easily, then they can burn you with the big passes. So defensively, our philosophy is always we've got to handle the run first and do the best we can on the pass.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Holly.
Do you think that these guys ought to be able to play in the Sugar Bowl tonight after what went down in terms of them receiving improper benefits and selling the memorabilia?
No, I don't think so. And if they found a loophole, they're able to get them eligible tonight to be able to play. They worked with the NCAA, and they're out there playing. We've talked about this now for a few weeks, that everybody's had an opinion. I haven't found one person to jump up and down and say, absolutely, they should be allowed to play tonight, with the fact that they're being suspended 5 games next year. But it is what it is. They're going to play. They could care less. They're focused on what it takes to be able to go out and win. I'm more interested to see how this affects the other players on this team. The first time Ohio State faces adversity tonight, does this team come together, or is it fragmented? Are they able to have a backbone tonight when they face adversity against this Arkansas team that, by the way, is very talented and one of the most athletic teams that Ohio State will have seen all year?
It was 31 years ago that one Lou Holtz brought the Hogs in here to play for the national national championship against Alabama, but he couldn't do anything with Major Ogilvy, who ran to the end zone for the Crimson Tide. Steve Whitman bowling over the Hogs, and Alabama kept Sweet Lou from winning a national title, at least for a while. Eventually got one with the Fighting Irish. Well, Bob Petrino in his third year is taking Arkansas back to a major bowl game and hoping that he'll get a first major bowl win since Lou won the Orange Bowl in 1978. Razorbacks head coach spoke with Holly Rowe.
Well, Coach, this isn't your first BCS game, but it is for all of your players. What sense of nervousness do you have with your team right now?
Well, I don't know if we're really nervous. We're excited, and we got to come out here and run around and sweat a little bit and get that first kickoff underneath us. But I think we're well prepared. Our players are anxious to get started. We've been here for a long time. It's time to play.
Ohio State's had some players with some distractions this week. How have you kept your guys focused on not worrying about what's going on with them? Let's just worry about what we can do.
Well, that's what we've done all year. We try to focus on us. The issue is always us, how we prepare, how we practice, how we get ready for the game. And now it's time to go out and perform, and we've been doing that well all season.
Everybody knows about your offense, but people don't talk much about your defense. What do you anticipate from them tonight?
Well, we've got to do a great job with our eyes, being very disciplined. We play fast and physical. We're good on defense, and we're going to have to rally around and hit the quarterback a bunch. If we hit him a lot, we'll win the game.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
It's just been a dismal 2011 for the Big Ten. Iowa and Illinois got wins in 2010, but so far this year, 0-5. You know about the problem stopping SEC offense with the Big Ten. I mean, why does it continue to happen? Can it be different tonight?
See, when I look at these teams in the Big Ten, to me they're more physical. But the SEC teams, they're more predicated on speed and power. The Big Ten needs to catch up in the speed department. They have fast guys, but that's not what they're about. When you look at a team like Arkansas, Bobby Petrino just told Holly Rowe, Holly, we're going to be fast and we're going to be physical. That's their moniker, and that's what they try to do. And if they don't have great speed, they have such a great concept, an idea of what they're doing on defense, that they play fast as a unit, and that makes all the difference in the world. So I like to me, they have a more emphasis on speed and physicality in the SEC.
I think the Big Ten has to shake the ankle weights. If they shake the ankle weights, they have a shot to maybe be able to run with these teams from the SEC. Honestly, the big thing with the SEC is pride. Collectively, as a group, when these teams get a chance to go up against teams outside of their region, they take a lot of pride in having a chance to show the country that the SEC plays the best football in the country. And the other thing to be said is what Des just talked about. The speed's always been a factor with the SEC, but in 2010 and moving forward, speed has never been emphasized more in the college game than it is right now. How many times do you turn on games and you see offenses that are playing a spread attack? You need players who can make plays in space, and defensively, you need to be able to find athletes who can defend offensive players in space. The SEC, because of the defense that they play and the emphasis that they put on speed and the way they take advantage of that speed, definitely a notch above everybody else.
Called it the worst New Year's Day for the Big Ten ever. Maybe Ohio State could ease some of that pain.
14 300-yard passing games. He's had 9 of them this season, but he was about 292 yards short of 300 when he played for Michigan against Ohio State as a true freshman, November 17, 2007. Mallett was 1 of 3 on the game and was under siege from the Buckeye defense.
Ladies and gentlemen watching this game tonight, I want you to be aware of one thing. These Arkansas fans will be the loudest when Terrell Pryor is trying to call the snap. They understand football. When Arkansas has the ball, they'll be quiet. But they'll have difficulty in calling plays and checking off audibly. I've coached all over the country. I've never coached a place that was more difficult to call play than the visiting team at Arkansas.
Ohio State comes in as co-champions of the Big Ten. They lost only 1 game. That was to Wisconsin. Arkansas didn't win the SEC, but almost the next best thing. Their 2 losses to Alabama and Auburn. They come in with a high-powered attack. They are ranked 8th in the country. Partner, I still get the feeling that they're kind of under the radar nationally. Do you feel that way?
I think a little bit. This is their first BCS bowl game, so they're kind of newcomers to this party. But let me tell you a little bit about Arkansas. Their defense is fast and aggressive and better than people think. Offensively, everybody knows about quarterback Ryan Mallett, but they're the only team in the country that's had a 3,000-yard passer, 5 receivers with over 500 yards of receptions, and a 1,000-yard rusher in Niall Davis. And I really think the emergence of Davis after the Alabama loss has been the difference in this football team. Down the stretch, the balance of this offense has made them as good as anybody in college football when it comes to moving the football and scoring points.
Who wins the game tonight, Arkansas or Ohio State?
I hate going against Arkansas, but I've got to go with Ohio State. I think they have the speed, the determination. They'll find a way. Ohio State.
How do you pick? You coached at both schools.
I know. I can't win.
I'm picking
a tie.
I'm picking Arkansas in this game. And the reason why is not only Ryan Mallett, the quarterback, Niall Davis, the running back, has been exceptional for this Arkansas football team. But how about their defense? Jerry Franklin on defense leads this defense getting to the quarterback. 6.5 sacks on the season, and they've got 37 sacks on the season. They will pressure Terrell Pryor, put pressure on the offense, and if they come up with turnovers, look out.
You convince me. Ohio State wins.
And of course, the Sugar Bowl is always something that stirs the deepest emotions, as Tom Rinaldi tells us.
A program in controversy, another with opportunity. One team a regular on this stage, the other a rookie in this setting. One with a conference to defend, another with a league to live up to. A quarterback facing a future uncertain, another seeking a signature win. However they dared, whatever they endured, wherever they endeavored, tonight the sour fades, the sweetness follows at the Sugar Bowl.
The Razorback fans are fired up. And down in their tunnel, the 10-2 Razorbacks, ranked 8th in the country. Bobby Petrino leading them to their first BCS appearance and their first Sugar Bowl game since 1980. Here come the Hogs. From New Orleans in the Superdome, the 77th All-State Sugar Bowl underway. Roderick Green has to take it over his shoulder about 4 yards deep, and he won't bring it out.
Starting in the system, great hands.
First snap, play action. Mallett loads, deep middle, in and out of the hands of Joe Adams. Had he held it, he might have been gone.
Second play.
There's the play action. Pryor's in trouble, but he got it to his safety back, Heron, and he's dropped for a loss. Freddie Burton, the middle linebacker. They'll keep it on the ground until Arkansas can stop them, and that time they do. Pick up maybe a yard. There is Winston. High snap. Pryor flushed out of the pocket. Here he goes. This is what he does best. First down and quite a bit more. Might take it, but he lost the ball. And Arkansas, no. Ohio State's got it in the end zone. Sonsenbacher on a crazy play. Whoa. A pop-up that's fielded at about the 49-yard line by Freddie Burton. Nice hands by Freddie Burton. At the fullback spot in front of Niall Davis. And he'll get another carry behind his fullback. And a nice one it is. First down. Pick up. Second down at 5. Mallett sets, fires across the middle. This time they hold on to it. And he's still on his feet. He might be gone. TJ Williams, his knee never touched. Touchdown. Rolling over the would-be tackler and going for the score. Look at this.
He has great hands, and he has terrific balance to go with it. He's a third-year starter. He's the Mackey Award winner. He knows how to get open, and he knows what to do with the ball when he catches it.
The runner's wrist was down. By rule, he is down.
Davis a single setback, but it's Mallett with a quick throw to the corner to Adams. Touchdown.
One play later, working on Travis Howard. This is impossible to defend. When the quarterback throws it over the outside shoulder of the receiver, the cornerback has no chance to stop that play.
The give to Heron. And this time the Razorbacks waiting for him. Rudell Krim made the first hit. Buckeyes back to the eye set on 2nd and 10. Play action. Pryor loads, fires to the outside, almost picked off. Jermaine Thomas had his hands on it. Sanzenbacher.
6 catches and 6 touchdowns, but they were still as prolific as they were throwing the football without Childs in the offense for half of the year.
Greg was hurt in that Vanderbilt game. Here's a throwback screen. Got it to Adams in the open field. He's Kobe Hamilton in motion. He hasn't caught a ball yet. And a quick draw to Davis. Now Davis, another dozen. Good field position again, trailing by a touchdown. Davis puts his head down and piles through for 9 more.
Pass rush guy.
Here's the punt. High kick. They'll let it go. And can they get down there, Arkansas, and keep it out of the end zone? Yes, they can. At the 1. Brandon Sane got the last carry, not Heron, and he's still in there. Tailback, he'll get another call. And he's fighting, but he's not going to get there. Better give it up, though, Arkansas. Don't get a penalty. Not when you've stopped him. So, again, on 3rd and 2.
Well, and he's valuable on these 3rd down plays because he covers the slot receiver. So now that's 2 new guys in the game, not just 1. 2 new guys in this 3rd down and long situation for Ohio State.
3rd time. Arkansas has been a 3rd and long already. Malik fires, and they got this one down to the 40. Chris Gregg, the tight end, has got a 1st down. Pryor going to drop it off short to his fullback, and he's hit immediately, and a loss of 2. Terrell Williams, Ryan Mallett, deep middle to Adams. Wow. He'd take a shot.
Well, you mentioned this offense is the kind of offense that's built to get back in a football game. And it's worth noting also.
All right, we got a 1st down and 20 after the holding call. Empty backfield. Mallett, quick throw, got it to Jarius Wright, and he's all the way to midfield. And that should be good enough for a 1st down. There's some kind of play, and has had some kind of first half. Mallett. Oh, boy. Joe Adams dropped another one. Pryor to Sane. Nice open field hit by Darius Winston.
Coverage better.
Mallett waiting. Hayward had a hand on him. He threw complete, though, and got a 1st down. DJ Williams, his tight end, Mr. Dependability. 3rd down and 2. They need the 1st down and then worry about everything else, and Davis has got it for him, and a bunch more. Now Davis into Ohio State territory down to the 39-yard line.
Bobby Petrino running down to call timeout.
Down to the 30-yard line for a 1st down. 4th and 15. Here's number 15. Oh, incomplete to the 26-yard line of Joe Adams.
And Petrino will use another timeout here.
Arkansas trying to score here before the break. Mallett flushed, throwing. Oh, and it's dropped again by Adams. Would have been a touchdown. 10 seconds left in the half. Mallett fires far side. This one's caught by Hamilton inside the 5.
It's the 2nd time we've seen Ryan Mallett make a throw that's impossible to defend. The fade to the outside shoulder.
This will be a 20-yard field goal attempt. Kind of a tight angle from the right hash. And he's got it right down the middle. Start the 3rd quarter in New Orleans at the Superdome. Ohio State leading Arkansas 28-10.
Going here, even though they're down by 18, to keep that balance.
They give it to Davis. He's almost back out to the top of your screen. Davis, another nice run, almost 10 more.
Run the football when he's standing over there.
Mallett, quick play fake in the throw in the flat to Adams. Yes. Ran out of real estate, but Joe's got a 1st down.
Longer this season.
This is a team that is used to scoring touchdowns. In the last 2 possessions, they've had to settle for field goals, but it's a perfect kick, and that gets them a little bit closer. 9:14 remaining in 3rd. Ohio State 28, Arkansas 13. Heron hitting the backfield and dropped for a loss.
And you can just feel
Pryor Stands tall, incomplete, knocked down by Anthony Leon, who had quite...
And I like what Arkansas did there, because when they rushed Terrell Pryor, they did it with discipline. Watch the four guys rushing. They don't get beyond Terrell Pryor. They keep him right in front, and they force him to stay in there and make an accurate throw, which he...
Big third down. 3rd and 2. Not going to get it. Back to the line of scrimmage is all. Alfred Davis a little frustrated that they couldn't get a touchdown, but they got 3 more. Just a 26-yard drive because they had such great field position. 2nd down, 11. DJ Williams, the tight end, in motion. And now Davis cuts it outside. Niall Davis, big gain again. At the 36, 1st down, Razorbacks. The toss to Wingo. Ronnie Wingo down the sideline. He's the big back. Another 1st down, and Mallett to the air, to the corner, to the end zone. Touchdown, Jarius Wright.
You see Devon Torres just say, I can't stop that. I mean, that's an NFL perfect throw. Again, over the outside shoulder on the fade route. It's impossible to defend. The receiver presses him to the inside. The ball's thrown over the outside shoulder. Even with the cornerback in good position, you can't stop that play.
Does it get any prettier than this?
Well, you mentioned 10 play or 10 yards, 11 yards, 12 yards, and then the big one at the end. Ohio State makes you earn your points. Well, Ryan Mallett in Arkansas earned that touchdown.
Here's Cameron Hayward getting hit after jumping in the air, trying to knock down the pass. Jarius Wright in motion toward the ball. He's the one that caught the touchdown pass. Mallett across the middle. And DJ Williams, did he get in? Yes, he did.
Outstanding individual effort by DJ Williams. Hines wraps him up high, what you want to do down there, but he's able to reach the ball across the plane for the 2 points.
What an effort by the Mackey Award winner as the nation's best tight end.
Still never lost control of the ball.
Pryor in trouble again. Got away. Sets his speed and fires. Got a man open on the near side. He threw it to the bench of Arkansas. Incomplete. Moments ago, Ryan Mallett rallied the troops around him. They're only down 10. Into the shotgun. The throw complete to DJ Williams.
Let's go, my man. Because of injuries, that's who he's working on. And this is a mismatch that favors DJ Williams. Dominic Clark's in pretty good position, but Williams is a wide body. Put their defense in a bad spot. Try to pin Ohio State down deep again and see if their defense can make another stop.
Remember, Breeding got him down to the 1-yard line on one of his punts tonight. And this one's inside the 5, caught on the fly. Great job. Inside its own 5 again. Heron, there's the play. Heron.
Now, that can't be a safety, I don't think. I think they're going to move his forward progress back.
But he's only going to... That's a safety.
I thought for sure they were going to mark his forward progress. Hits him chest high. Now, I thought they were going to mark him down right there. I'm a little surprised by that. It was a beautiful play by Anthony Leon. Chest high tackle. Wow.
Here whistle. Nothing. Now, first you hear anything in here, you're lucky.
Well, and watch, there was no whistle, so he becomes disengaged from Leon, and someone else makes the tackle in the end zone.
DJ Williams, the tight end in motion. On 2nd down and 6, Mallett had it batted in the air, but he still got it to Jarius Wright. Right, down the sideline, out of bounds.
Nice job by Wright, keeping his concentration on the tipped ball, but watch number 36, Brian Rolle, miss the tackle. Normally, the most sure tackler on this team misses the tackle. tackle, and Jarius Wright turns it into not only a first down, but a huge gain inside the Ohio State 30.
Pickup of 24. Ohio State leads by 8. 10:31 remaining in the fourth quarter of the All-State Sugar Bowl. Here's 2. Again, Arkansas trying to inch closer. The kick on the way, and it's good. They have inched closer. 31-26. The gap is closing. Waiting on the other end. He'll take it a yard deep. And he's going to be met before he even gets to the 15-yard line by the swarming Razorback special team. He will. And he almost had it stripped out of his hands by Anthony Leon.
You know, over the last couple days, I watched a lot of tape of Terrell Pryor, and I also watched Arkansas against Cam Newton, and they're very similar. They're not particularly quick starting when they run the football. Real short.
They got a full house backfield with Bourne and Holman in there, and Boom Herron and a 6'6 quarterback. 4th down and a yard. Herron diving for it. He got it.
Did the ball come out? I think the football came out before Herron hit the ground. Herron dove forward, but I think he was without the football when he dove. Even if Ohio State recovered, I think they're going to be short of the first down because the ball was out.
That's the key right there.
On 4th down, however, the ball was recovered behind the spot of the fumble, so the ball will be placed there. We will measure to determine whether it's a first down.
There you go, Todd. You call it. So here's another look. There goes the ball.
The ball's knocked out by Tremaine Thomas, the safety. As Herron is in the air, the ball is knocked out and knocked back a little bit. And so even if Ohio State recovered, it looks like they lost yardage on the play.
I don't think this is as close as it was before the last snap.
I'm not sure it is either. Here it is again. Tremaine Thomas gets his hands on the ball. Rudell Krim got penetration. And it all depends on the measurement.
Arkansas football. Mallett throws across the middle and another drop pass. A nice job of dropping it inside the 5 tonight. And he's going to be able to do it again.
Jeez. How about this guy's night?
Not bad, huh?
Wow.
Herron. Ooh. Holding on to bring him down, or he might have had a big gainer, was Jermaine Love. 2nd down and 7. Snap is clean. The handoff is as well. Herron dragged down.
Arkansas.
2 minutes remaining. And the final timeout taken by the Razorbacks. Started at their own 4-6 straight runs and moved them to the 2-minute mark. Herron will not get the first down, but the clock will continue to run. Buchanan, the punt. Jarius Wright's back deep, and they blocked the kick. They got it. Arkansas football.
Oh, my goodness.
Julian Horton with a play of the game.
He came right up the middle. Ohio State went with a little bit of a spread formation. And if you're the punter, you're thinking, I've got to get it out. He has blocked. A tremendous effort by the tight end, the third-team tight end, Chris Gregg, who's a long, athletic body, 6'3", 236 pounds, went airborne and got the block.
Here comes a blitz. Has to throw in a hurry. It's picked off. That'll do it. The first turnover of the game comes with 58 seconds left.
The Sugar Bowl was a great one last night. Terrell Pryor and the Buckeyes
5 players, of course, you wondered whether or not they should play. Well, if they didn't play, they wouldn't have won. Prior to DeVere Posey, 43 yards, 28-7. Prior, 204 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 52 rushing yards. Ryan Mallett, though, leading Arkansas back. Hits Jarius Wright, 22-yard touchdown, 2-point conversion. It's 31-21. Before the fourth quarter, Ryan Mallett trying to rally the troops. In the fourth quarter, Boone Heron takes the handoff, but Anthony Leon stops him at the line. Heron dragged down in the end zone. They call that a safety. Jim Tressel says, wait a second, he was outside the end zone. Now, Arkansas with good pressure on this punt. Colton Miles Nash comes up with a block. Arkansas recovers, and he probably could have run it in. But as Todd Blackledge said last night, they teach you to fall on it. Ryan Mallett then, with one last chance, drops back. Solomon Thomas, one of the 5, picks this one off. Cameron Hayward drops to his knees in celebration, and the Ohio State Buckeyes lift the Sugar Bowl trophy high. Pryor, after the game, apologized to the fans for the mistakes he made. But the 5 players that won't be playing in the first 5 games next year made their last game this season count. Pryor went 336 total yards and 2 touchdowns. Dan Herron had a touchdown, as did wide receiver DeVere Posey. Defensive lineman Solomon Thomas had the game-sealing pick with under a minute left. And the offensive lineman, you can keep in mind that Terrell Pryor was not sacked in this game. Todd McShay is in our BCS Technology Center. Should any of these players think about turning pro now?
I really don't think so. You know, the best 3 prospects of those 5 are the offensive skill guys. You have Boone Heron at running back, DeVere Posey at wide receiver, and Terrell Pryor, obviously, at quarterback. I think of those 3, Pryor is the least ready to make that jump. I think he still has so much to learn in terms of decision-making, reading coverages, and then becoming more consistent with his footwork. He's a really good college football player because he has the athleticism and just the ability to create when things break down. But when he's in the pocket and having to read the entire defense and work within the pocket from a fundamental standpoint, he's just not there. So I think Posey, if he decides to come out, would probably be a 2nd, 3rd round pick. Boone Heron would be in the 3rd, 4th round range. I think at best, Pryor would be a 3rd round pick, but probably closer to a 4th round pick as the 6th or 7th quarterback drafted in what's shaping up to be a very strong draft, John.
Back on SportsCenter, Mike Hill, Steve Berthume. Breaking news in the SportsCenter. Heard the news at the top of the show. Andrew Luck staying in school. Other schools not so lucky. According to our Joe Shad, Bama running back Heisman winner Mark Ingram foregoing his senior campaign. Ingram, limited by a few injuries earlier this season, had 875 rushing yards, 13 TDs this year after that Heisman season last year. Meanwhile, also in the SEC, Arkansas needs a new starter at quarterback. Sources also telling our Shad quarterback Ryan Mallett also plans to enter the draft. Mallett, one of the top quarterbacks in the nation this season, but had an up-and-down campaign with the Hogs this past year. Right now, let's bring in the guy who brought us all that news, Joe Shad, hanging out with us here on SportsCenter. Let's start off with Mallett, Joe. Up-and-down campaign this past season. So how much did Luck's decision play into his?
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to Ryan Mallett about how Andrew Luck's decision impacted him. I do know that earlier today, Ryan told me that he had not yet made his decision. So, Mike, I guess if we put 2 and 2 together, which we're smart enough to do, it certainly didn't hurt Mallett's decision. That said, I think he was going to go to the NFL all along. Remember, as a redshirt sophomore last year, he had the same decision to make that Andrew Luck had to make today. So that's kind of ironic. But, Mallett's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's got the poise in the pocket. For sure, he's a first-round draft choice.
Is that the reason that he is going in from talking to him? Those are the reasons why he feels like he's now ready for the NFL?
Yeah, I think Ryan Mallett entered this season believing that this would likely be his last year, Mike, and the opportunity to have played at Arkansas, his home state school, is one that he'll always be grateful for after having begun his career at Michigan. It was a homecoming, and he certainly has become a more polished passer and a more NFL-ready quarterback based on his experiences with Bobby Petrino, the Arkansas coach and offensive mastermind and quarterback guru.
guys next fall, but a record 56 underclassmen declared for the NFL draft. Some of those sort of surprising. Joe Shad now breaks down the top 10 guys who are going to have to fill those shoes this fall.
When former Arkansas quarterback Ryan Mallett was knocked out against Auburn this year, our #1 player tossed 4 touchdowns in his place. Rising junior Tyler Wilson grew up near Fayetteville, Arkansas, hoping for this chance. A chance to show he's an accurate gunslinger who can throw effectively on the move.
We're joined again by ESPN analyst Todd Blackledge. Todd, what did you learn from that game against Auburn for Tyler Wilson at Arkansas?
Well, I'll tell you what, the kid can play. I mean, I'm a big Ryan Mallett fan. I love the way he throws the football. I don't think Arkansas's offense will miss a beat with Tyler Wilson, because you think about that. On the road at Auburn, 6 weeks into the season, he hadn't played much at all. He comes in, completes over 73% of his passes, 332 yards, threw 4 touchdowns. Yes, he had a fourth-quarter interception that led to an Auburn touchdown at the end of the game, but I'll tell you what, the kid showed he can play. He played with poise. He's an outstanding thrower, and I know when I talked to Bobby Petrino about him before the Sugar Bowl, when Bobby talked about his next quarterback, he had a little sparkle in his eye. The kid can play.
There is a great crop of quarterbacks coming back to college football next season. Wilson, just one of them.
The Arkansas Razorbacks not too far behind enter the day with the number 17 overall recruiting class. And Craig Hubbard and I love to get in this discussion, Tom, but you look at the top end of this class. Offensive guard, some pass catchers there at the tight end spot, and some wide receivers. Not too heavy at the top when it comes to defensive prospects.
Well, it isn't, but look at where their needs are. They're going to be returning a lot of the defensive prospects. They have needs at tight end. They have needs in the offensive line, and they are preparing for some departures at the wide receiver corps, as everybody knows. You got Lonnie Gosha here from his defensive end spot, very active, good use of the hands. He's upgrading their defensive front positions. I don't think there's any question about that. So between the offensive line at the top, the defensive line, as you mentioned, Lowell, with Mitch Smothers and Bray Cook, I think that they are hitting the right notes to take that next step in their competition in the SEC in quest to win an SEC championship, because they took a big leap this year in terms of on-field production, most notably on defense. This team was second in the SEC in sacks on defense. So the inroads that they're making at positions where I think that they're recruiting in advance of departures, which you've got to do nowadays because of the accelerated rate at which recruiting's happening, I think Bobby Petrino's making some inroads there.
But, Reese, I guess we should go back to the Southeastern Conference.
Lowell, it seems to command a lot of attention all the time, but particularly on National Signing Day. And even in the SEC, there was evidence of the winter storm that has been gripping most of the country, it seems like, for years, but it's just been for the last few weeks. The NCAA still requires you to do sort of the antiquated thing and send in the national letters of intent via fax. However, they did offer a reprieve. If you had some type of weather situation, you could take a picture and then email the picture of the letter of intent to make sure that the schools got them and you got all signed up. On that subject, joining us now is the head coach at Arkansas, Bob Petrino. Bob, I understand you got a couple of unconventional letters of intent today?
Yes, we did, Reese. We had a good day. I was excited about it, but we had a couple that had to come across the phone. We had one young man out of Nowata, Oklahoma, that had to take a tractor down to be able to fax it to us through the snow. So it was an exciting day, but we got it done.
Oh, well, see, I'm a little disappointed because when they told me they brought a tractor, I thought he drove the tractor right up there on campus and hand-delivered it or something.
No, they wouldn't let him come on campus.
So you were able to get that. You got the pictures. And when you look at this class now, what kind of impact did going to the Sugar Bowl, playing in a BCS game, have on your recruiting class this year?
Well, I think it helped us a lot, and particularly down the stretch when we won 6 games in a row to finish the season off and get to a BCS bowl game. Seemed like that's when we were getting the commitments, and a lot of guys jumped on the boat. And, you know, it's an exciting time for us. We've got a lot of good players coming back, and now we added a nice class to it.
There were some guys on the offensive line that are gone. I know you lost your tight end, DJ Williams. The obvious loss is Ryan Mallett, but you have the replacement sitting there waiting in Tyler Wilson. Out of this class, who are some guys you expect to be able to step in, perhaps compete to be able to try to fill those holes?
Well, on the offensive front, we're going to need some help from Bray Cook and you know, possibly Mitch Smothers. Both of them are big, physical, very, very well coached, really understand technique, and had a great scheme out of high school. So we're going to need them to help us. Robert Thomas, the junior college defensive tackle, is very, very athletic. He's already on campus and doing a great job in our workouts on campus. And then I think Lonnie Gosha, a defensive end out of Union County High School in Lake Butler, Florida, is the combination of power and speed, has an opportunity to come in and help us at the defensive end spot.
Bob, we wish you all the luck in the world. I hope all of the people riding tractors got back to their homes safely, and I look forward to seeing the Razorbacks play this fall.
Okay, thanks a lot, Reese. Appreciate it.
All right, Bob Petrino, head coach.
Now, the images of the year.
Lay it all out there, baby. I want them helmets knocked off today.
You play smart, you play fast, and you play physical. They wanted us. Guess what? They got us.
Mark Herzlich leading the Boston College Eagles onto the field.
Shoelaces dropping in the wind.
Touchdown!
Cinderella lives, ladies and gentlemen.
Man of the year!
I remember the moment I tried to forget. I lost myself as better not said. Now I'm closer to the edge.
Maxwell State has got it.
Vince Madison has upset 13th ranked Virginia Tech.
Go down flames and taking you closer to the edge.
LSU's got to hurry this thing up. Oh! It is over!
Illegal participation on the defense.
Touchdown! A miracle in Baton Rouge! It's a fake. They pitch it. Can you believe this? Oh! Are you kidding me?
Lights, Cameron, action.
I'm not going to sit up there and say anything about it, whether I did or did not do it.
The first college football game here in 72 years. This is a memory of a lifetime.
We're going to hit every freaking thing that moves!
Imagine time when the truth ran free. The birth of a song, the death of a dream. Closer to the edge.
He'll take it to the house.
This never-ending story.
Another #1 has bitten the dust.
We all fall short of glory.
The Boise dream is over.
I was very upset, and I made sure he knew.
We have just witnessed history. One man, one school, 400 wins.
I stayed in because I love you all.
Oh, what a catch!
Oh, yeah! When you think it can't get any worse for the Longhorns, it does.
Everybody's at fault. You can't trust your team. You can't trust your coaches.
Florida deserves the best, and I'm not sure we gave them our best this year.
Notre Dame is a high-profile job, and with that comes a great deal of scrutiny.
Please stand as we pay tribute to Declan Sullivan. Eric's a fighter, and he's doing as well as you can expect in this situation.
Nick Bell brightened all of our lives every day, and will always be in our hearts forever.
Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games. He caught it!
Carolina wins the football game. The Connecticut Huskies will represent the league in their BCS Bowl. Is there anything else he can do?
Pistols firing! Razzle razzle-dazzle.
The miraculous grab kept it to himself.
One of the most acrobatic interceptions you will ever see in your life.
He might go. Oliver Easing. That may never have happened in the history of college football.
Saved a touchdown.
That's the hardest quarterback shot I've ever seen.
Auburn defeats Alabama. Glendale, Arizona. Here come the Tigers.
Fumble.
Everybody stopped except for Dyer.
Auburn wins.